Take two.
This is Sweetwater 1's 2018 Facility Plan Meeting with the School Facilities Division of the State Construction Department. And we'll introduce ourselves first.
Dan Odaz, Plan 1 Architects, consultant to the district.
Dan Solaroli, Director of Facilities.
Okay, Troy Decker, State Construction Department Planner.
Kelly McGovern, Superintendent.
Amber Leach, Planning.
Charlie Kaufman, Planning Coordinator, School Facilities Division.
Paul Severson, Design and Construction Administrator, School Facilities Division.
Shelby Carlson, School Facilities Division Administrator.
Dawn Atkinson, Plan 1 Architects.
William Wheatley, Plan 1 Architects.
Charlie Vanover, Plan 1 Architects.
Brandon Finney, Planning and Finance, State Construction.
Lance Johnson, School Facilities Project Manager.
Okay, thank you for everybody for joining us. This is the facility plan template. It just is basically a 1,000-foot look or 10,000-foot look at facility planning as a whole for this school district for this year. I did highlight Dell's name, and if he comes, I'll unhighlight it, and if he doesn't show up, then I'll go ahead and delete it as a record. So with that, the first thing we're going to do is a little bit different than we normally do. We usually start right on down through our template and discuss things, but we're going to go ahead and have a presentation from the consultant. I'm going to go ahead and turn off our video so we don't have any streaming issues. Hand this over, and you guys can do your PowerPoint, and we can talk about a planning study we've been doing.
Minimize. There you go.
I think there you go.
Hit F5. Thanks for the shortcut.
Okay, so thank you guys for the opportunity. This is actually an update to a previous presentation that we had done that talked about multiple options. We're going to walk you through that, as well as what directions we've taken following that last meeting. One of the things that has changed, as of this morning actually, was a discussion regarding the capacity and what the actual anticipated overcapacity student amount is. This slide does represent the alignment of the years through 2022, or excuse me, from 2022 through 2026. It shows that would put you at 1,515 students with a school capacity of 1,364, creating the overcapacity amount of 151 students. Also indicated on this slide is utilizing the square foot calculator from your website, and as provided by Mr. Kaufman earlier this week electronically, showing at a high school 151 students gives you an allowable square foot calculation of 54,439 square feet. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to identify where we came from. These were the 9 options, actually, excuse me, 10 options that we had presented previously. First option was utilizing the Rock Springs High School, the existing high school itself, providing stat curriculum space within the existing building. Due to the impact of the site in general, that was determined to be an infeasible option and was asked to no longer be proceeded with. Option B was the purchase or lease of potential commercial sites within the city. Further investigation shows that there is nothing available to be purchased or leased that could even accommodate the program. So again, that was asked to no longer be considered moving forward. The solution C, which is to utilize what was tagged as the satellite high school site. That project made it to the 95% design, and this was reviewing an option to construct a portion of that facility itself, as we kept that as an option as we move forward. Solution D was back to the original high school site, but utilizing the site to plant a bunch of modular buildings, again, due to the impact of the site and whether or not they thought it could be feasible. Solution E takes us back to the satellite high school site, and this is again another modular option, but utilizing the undeveloped site to place those modulars. Was asked to continue and be considered. Option F was the expanded class schedules at the high school as it exists today. Should this be explored further with the district? That was actually one that was also asked to be considered. Option G was the possible district-wide grade reconfiguration, and that was asked to be excluded. Solution H takes us to the Lincoln Elementary School site, further renovating and adding to that building. That was one option that was asked to be maintained for further investigation. Solution I was utilizing that same site, but raising the building and constructing new. It was determined that that would not be continued with previously. And Solution J is the Washington Elementary School site. Due to the site parameters, location, and basically how it laid out, didn't meet any SFD requirements for square footage of area for the site itself. So it too was asked to be eliminated as an option as we proceeded. So that brings us to our proposed solution C. This slide actually identifies the master plan and comprehensive build out of what the satellite high school in the future could potentially look like. But what we were talking about is just utilizing a portion of the site and developing it to the portion required to meet the capacity needs of the district. This slide basically shows just a phased development for the building itself, parking, and miscellaneous other infrastructure needs that would be required. Here what we're doing is we're taking a closer look at the building itself as was designed to the 95% phase. It carries a modular design that allows for portions of it to be separated relatively easily. So what we've done here is we've identified blocks of the square footage to show how we can incorporate what is tagged as the Health Academy within the building itself, identifying its capacity and square footage. You'll see here we show the first phase, so to speak, or the sub-phase as we've called it, since the satellite itself was a phased project. The sub-phase brings this portion to 28,175 square feet approximately, that we've then laid within it the proposed programming. The capacity for that, as we're showing it, brings you to about 134 students, showing just short of that 151, the revised number that we had today. So, one thing we are showing at the bottom, kind of the red or brown, depending on which screen you're actually looking at, is an expansion pod per square feet. That's another 14,000 square feet, both of which combined keeps you significantly less than the 54,000 square feet that's noted through the calculator. But then that again increases your student capacity to exceed the 151.
Is everybody familiar with the whole academy concept that they're doing in Rock Springs and why that's so important to picking a solution?
That would be helpful to me.
I'm not.
Maybe Kelly, you want to?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Rock Springs High School currently has 3 academies. The first one is the Health, Occupations, and Career Academy. It is by far the most popular at this time, and I really believe it's because it was the first one, and it has the momentum that to get up and going. The second academy is the Energy Resource Academy that really aligns with a lot of our mines and things that we have in Sweetwater County. Again, very successful academy. And then the third one is the Fire Law and Leadership Academy. That is the newest one. It is in its 3rd year, and its numbers for next year are at capacity already for the kids that come in. The academies go sophomore through senior level for the kids. So their freshman year, they don't have those opportunities. That's really their transition into high school. And then once they reach the 10th grade, then they have the opportunities to get inside the academy. They're very successful for a couple of reasons. One, they focus a lot on soft skills for students, which are really important. We know the next generation, they live through their phone and social media. So they work a lot on carrying conversations with other people, looking them in the eye when you talk to them, not looking down, shaking their hands, resumes, job applications. They do job shadowing out in the community. They have speakers that come in. The kids actually stay with the same cohort from sophomore year to their senior year. And I think part of the reason, one, is because of the soft skills, but two, kids really are given an opportunity to focus on that academy that they have. So if they're interested in anything in health occupations, it's perfect for them. And we were talking about that a little bit at lunch, and so even if a student decided that, you know, maybe that isn't something that I really want to do, then the kids find that out and they still learn all those opportunities as they go. There's waiting lists to get in the academies that we have in our high school, so they are very successful for them. And it just gives them a reason to be engaged in school for what do they want to do when they graduate, type thing. And I wish we could take it more for that because it's really been very successful.
So I have one question, and I think I know the answer, but I want to make sure. So if a student is in the health academy, they're doing all their classes there. They're not going back to the main high school for their math and their other type, English, those types of things. They're doing everything right here.
Yes.
They do everything except physical
Except
education.
PE, except PE.
Yep.
Okay.
Where would they do that? Other
Back
school?
at the other school.
Okay.
How far away is it?
From that site, probably a couple miles, 2.5 miles maybe.
Jog there, jog back, you're good.
And then you go
Unless it's
Well, actually, Brandon, if they do that either in the
Yes,
morning or
thank
the afternoon, then there's only one transport a day.
That's what I was wondering, how does that work?
And you'll notice when we show you like the square foot calculations, that the amount of square foot that we need to do a couple academies is so much less than what the square foot calculator would give you, because we're not doing a big gym space or locker rooms or those things. It truly is like the academic core is what's being built as part of this solution.
What about food?
There's a food place there.
In there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't be a production kitchen, it would be just a serving kitchen.
So the portions that aren't highlighted, you've got the health academy and then this brown piece. What are the other three pieces then?
So,
Which academies are those? And
well, what ends up happening is this school expanded to the satellite. There was 4 pods in this thing, so there's a lot of support spaces. One of the pods, I believe it is actually that one on the top left, becomes a special education pod,
okay,
and incorporates a lot of that into the school.
okay,
When it was more expansive on the lower left, that is the kitchen, full-blown, when it comes to being a prep serve.
okay,
And then over on the right-hand side, that is the athletic wing that we were talking about, that has the competition gymnasium, locker rooms, weight room, and that sort of thing, all contained over there, so.
So Shelby, the concept here that we kind of worked out the last several months is we don't want all and we don't want nothing. And so how do you still follow commission rules and regs, state statute, and yet keep to the original design of the approved satellite high school that the commission's already approved?
right,
And so the phasing is really matching up to enrollment projections, matching up to what programs, academy could fit in this space. And then so when we talk about phased, this construction is not dependent upon the other being constructed, but yet at the same time, they can be added to in the original design as those numbers increase over the years. So to make it a lot more attractive to the legislature to fund over capacity, but not fund over capacity so great that it's potentially thrown out because of an over design. You know, instead of meeting the academy's needs, and even more than that, enough for growth within that academy, it allows then for you to add as you go with the original concept and make it financially feasible for the state as those numbers increase.
The way I like to think about it is the satellite high school project was always intended to be phased, even in its full iteration. And now what we're looking at is breaking that first phase into a smaller piece. So it's half of phase 1, essentially, is what we're looking at to take care of the immediate capacity issue.
okay, and remind me, and I know that you mentioned this, but the capacity of this piece is 134 students?
Yeah, not counting the lower portion that's shown in the brown,
Okay,
so.
and that 134 with your projections is good for how long before, given their current projections?
151 is what we can support.
That's for 5 years, right?
It's an average. And we're going to be talking about that later on in the facility plan meeting, and we'll break those numbers down for you very clearly.
The projection numbers?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, because I'll admit, I'm looking at this and I'm confused
Yep,
when I
yep.
look.
So let's kind of put that off for a little while, and let's continue on with this presentation, then we'll come back and we'll exactly talk out how we
Okay.
come to those numbers.
Okay, and remind me again what the dark piece is?
So that is, again, that one's listed as what would be culinary arts,
Okay,
because
Yeah.
in another sub-academy, basically. And in utilizing it, it can double as a kitchen and expanded needs for that school as well. It also contains all the educational space. On the bottom section of it, there's 4 classrooms that you see right up on it. So that would impact the actual student capacity.
And that brown portion is shown, is just a possibility, it's not included in the 28,000.
No.
That's what was there.
okay, thank you.
So again, you're saying it's not proposed as phase 1,
No.
but, okay, so should we have it colored? And why would we have it colored in this?
Well, and so originally we didn't have it colored because we were focusing on a 129 student capacity number. That's where we had the break. At 134 students, we were volleying just right where that comes out. But now that we are at the 151 that you guys shared with us this morning, that second piece becomes, I guess, more feasible into the equation as to getting the student count elevated, because it will add the additional classrooms. But that's kind of, like I said, if you add the square footage to this, you're still only talking 42,000 square feet of the 54 that the.
Okay, so it fits within the allowable, it fits within the projection, and it's going to meet the needs of a serving kitchen in the meantime before that academy actually moves over. So we don't really need, I mean, even though you have culinary arts here, we could rename that and just say, at this point, you could say, serving kitchen, future culinary arts.
Yeah.
And I think that would communicate pretty clearly in this without confusing a future academy with the present academy. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question? I know you want to talk enrollment further, but if I remember right, you guys were 40 students over, and I think your enrollment went up again this year. And so what are you over capacity now?
We're going to talk about that again during the
I
planning
know you
study.
are.
We'll really nail that, all the numbers.
Okay. But could you just show, is that number? I mean, it was 40.
1406.
So that's.
Right, but tell me how many students for your 100.
So it's
42 over?
Correct.
Thank you, that's the number.
Yeah, it's 1406.
Okay, thank you.
Kelly, do you have a culinary arts program right now in your existing high school?
We do.
Okay.
It's not, Lance, it's not an academy per se, only due to lack of space for that, but we have a couple of culinary arts that we're waiting to expand. The number of kids that are interested in those kind of classes, we just can't offer them throughout the schedule and the space that we have right now.
So if this option was the one moving forward, it's possible that you could actually energize that program over at the other school and add some additional relief. Is that a thought that you've been having?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So then the next solution that we decided to continue looking at was utilizing that same site, but proposing a modular farm. Now, all we're doing here is showing that it's an orientation of miscellaneous modulars, either standard size, custom size, whatever it takes to truly meet the criteria. We're showing, based on the previous numbers, a total of 44,000 square foot of mod building compared to the 54,000 allowable for the calculation, so.
Did that change, the upgraded
That's-
number?
That's
With
something
the
that, and
151?
just to be clear, we didn't go and revisit how this could or could not fit the curriculum as of this morning. So that number, it's not a solid number. It could increase or be impacted otherwise, so.
The square footage?
Yes, yeah, of what it's utilized.
Just from my education, Dan, what's the life cycle of a modular? Versus a
I don't know that I know that number.
20, 30 years in this state.
How long?
20, 30 years.
50 on a modular? Good deal then.
Well, in Rock Springs, it
Wow.
might be because they're gonna make you put every one of those on a legal foundation.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so you weren't part of that discussion, Brandon. That was one of the things that we talked about early on, was the impact of the modulars and what has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Can't just set a slab and put them on jacks. It has to be full frost depth foundation.
Plus security. How
Yeah.
do you address the
Yeah.
security element? Is that any local ordinance that requires that, or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, it is.
They put a barbed wire fence around it.
If I recall, this particular site had been zoned for modulars, so it has to go for zoning approval anyways. In the city, the city has
You
very,
looked at it, but yeah,
doesn't allow
that's not a-
modulars as an option for construction.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Hit one modular, two, okay, but.
Something like that, it'd just be.
And the third option that we looked at was going to the expanded class schedule at the existing high school. And what we've shown is how that could work, but the things, there's a lot of impact and other things to be discussed, which Dan and Kelly can chime in farther on. All we've done here is indicated if you add a 50-minute class at the beginning or at the end of the day, what that section can accommodate for that class period, and then how would it actually impact your scheduling of busing, athletics, et cetera, through the day, so.
And still the overlap in your other class periods during the day. I mean, it
At
doesn't
some point in
give
time.
you a whole lot, it just gives a break at that one particular time.
So you do, you added a class?
And that's all we showed, you know, as far as the district and how they would handle that, if you guys wanted to throw some feedback at it, right now you can.
Sure. Several years ago, when I was teaching at Rock Springs High School, they offered a 0 hour at that time. And it accommodated at the beginning of the day, but it's not gonna be the long-term solution of the number of kids that we've got coming through. And what you'll see on the number of kids with that bubble when we get to that, it really goes back even further from there. When you look at our enrollment numbers from first grade on, every year they increase. So we're looking at the next 5 years, but I could tell you when you go clear back to first grade, I mean, we're gonna continue to have this problem more than just this 5-year term. When you add to the end of the day as another option, when we discussed this, years ago, it didn't work then and it won't work now, because not only do you have that cross in the middle of the day, but then you run into Wyoming High School Activities Association, the sanctioned events. The other issue that you've got then is your operational costs, because now you've got to have additional custodial staff that's got to take care of the building, your secretarial staff that's got to run your front office, professional development needs that you're going to have, because when you go to train your staff, whether it's operational or academic staff, you're going to have to find that time where it's going to be able to work, and so you're going to have increased costs there. The other concern that I have on top of all of those is the transportation funding. Because when I look at our district budget going into next year with the 3-year frozen average going in, our budget for transportation is about 4.2 million, and we're essentially down 1.4 million from the previous year. So by doing something like this, it really isn't going to help me consolidate bus routes. It's not going to help that. It's essentially going to really rob Peter to pay Paul, and I'm going to pay it in transportation when I don't have the budgetary constraints to make that happen, let alone what's best for kids, because you're going to limit their opportunities for practice and travel and all of those things. So that wouldn't be cost effective, and it wouldn't meet the needs of the kids in the building.
It doesn't really promote the academy concept either.
You're still stagnant, the same issues.
Yeah.
Just packing more in.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So as you continue working, and this is kind of I know it's just your rough draft, you're gonna have pros and cons associated with each. Those are great things to associate, because a person looking at this could say, well, right, man, change your schedule, no cost. Well, it's not, it is a cost. It's a significant impact to the district, so those are the kind of things we'll capture.
It could be a Band-Aid for a year if you were waiting for the building to go up if you had to.
If we could get the transportation budget, you're exactly right, Amber. If we could fall in the transportation budget that we're still trying to crunch through for next year. So we've got that deficit down to about 900,000 possibly, but we still have almost $1 million to go to make it work, and that's current way it is right now, let alone
cut $1 million?
1.4 million.
So, solution H, which was our last solution, was to utilize the existing Lincoln School site, which is 3/4 to a mile down the street from the existing high school. We identified to do this. The school does have some challenges. So what you see here is a floor plan of the renovated main level. And to the very north or top of the page, there is also an addition that would be required to help bring this facility into a state of ADA compliance. It's a split level design in a school, so you're walking in the door, going up and down stairs type of facility. We do identify teaching spaces throughout and parallel the two curriculums as we noted in the programming for the academies. That was your main floor. This is the lower level, and what you see here, there's a whole lot of white space for a reason. The building was built in phases, and in the original design, portions of that so-called basement were never intended to be occupied. So down there is literal crawl space or storage or other needs. And so there's some code issues, head height, such as structural clearance doesn't comply for accessible spaces. So where that line stops is where we show a continued renovation of the space, again in the addition, to fit this all within. One of the things that this school does do is it provided quite a bit of teaching stations in relatively odd configurations depending on what floor you're on. It came out to 168 student capacity. And then I identified things such as parking and how it would impact the site. So, that said, this is our actual last slide on this and the last option that we were asked to proceed and review. So. Well, and yeah, Don brings a valid point. The history of Lincoln and some of the past discussions, and Dan probably would enjoy to speak to some of this, is the existing condition of that facility and the cost associated with making it functional.
Did you just pull the kids out of it?
We did.
Yeah.
That building's, FCI score is 3.45. Foundation leaks. Here, and I was waiting for comments, but so I guess I'll throw mine in now. When you look at our school district and when we get into the numbers, okay, Shelley, I know you keep hitting on capacity. That's a concern of mine because right now we're 42 over. Next year it looks like we're going to be more. The following year after that, we're going to be over 100 over. When you look at 4 years, we're going to be almost 300 kids over. When you look at 8 years, we're going to be 300 kids over. Spending money into a school like this that doesn't really help us out long term. Foundation's in horrible shape. I've got requests in Ames. I mean, it leaks terribly. The roof is in bad shape. Structurally, it's in bad shape. I demoed Lowell, and Lowell was a 3.75 with almost the same issues. Now, even if we were to demo like we did Lowell, selective demoing, and took out the old 1958 side of the building, and leaves us the 1985 building, we'd still have to add something to it. The infrastructure is in terrible shape. I mean, it's to throw money at this, it just seems like a bigger waste of time and money. One of the things that we were asked to look at is what's going to be a short-term solution. I don't think Rock Springs needs a short-term solution because the short-term is now. Our short-term was yesterday. 4 years ago, we were doing this. 2 years ago, we were at 85%. 2 years ago, I was at select committee meetings trying to get this thing going. Okay, so we're in emergency state now. We look at our 4-year cohort, and I know Troy's going to come up, and we'll address this. But when I look at our numbers that we currently have, and even though someone says, well, your schools aren't full, I know they're not full, but we still have more kids in those schools than we ever did before. And when you project those numbers 8 years, do you consider an 8-year bubble a short-term solution, or is that a trend? Okay, I know we have these cohort studies, and when I talk to Dale, I says, I'm going to have to disagree with some of the numbers there because I look at what we have now. And this is my second district, and I'm pretty used to dealing with you guys as far as cohorts, and I understand them pretty well, I think. 8 years, when you look at from first grade to our 8th grade right now, that, if you're considering that a bubble, I consider that a trend. And I don't think that putting a lot of money into this is a solution. And I know that I've been to enough of the meetings where I know that everybody's saying, hey, can we preserve some of these older buildings? Anybody who knows me knows I've preserved a lot of older buildings in my 14 years with school districts. Okay, I don't have anything against it unless it doesn't make sense. And I'm not saying that this doesn't make sense. The other issue that we have gone the gamut already with the satellite school. We have gone through all the hoops. We've had our studies. We had our educational studies. We have gone through everything that is required a district to do. Anything else, unless I misunderstood at our last meeting, would require us to basically start all over again. That doesn't seem right. Not when we have an emergency now. Okay, our emergency is going to hit us in 2 years. When we have over 100 kids up in that school, if our numbers stay the same, and really, when you look at the demographics, I'm an outsider in Rock Springs, so I have a little different view. I go home to Evanston, but I read the Rock Springs paper and I kind of look at it from a different view. Rock Springs is a blue-collar area. They're mining industries. They recently, when I talked to Senator Hassett, last year, he says, again, a lot of people retire. For every 5 who retire, we're hiring 3. But the 3 that they hire are younger men. They're younger people, and they have kids. Okay, I know Charlie's group, they looked at our birth rates. Pretty high birth rate in Sweetwater Memorial. Okay, so as people are retiring, they're still building homes, and these homes have play toys in them. So they're not retired people. They're people who are moving here, and they're people with secure jobs. So I'm going to argue from this point on, and that the only option that we have is the first phase of the satellite school. Okay, whatever that turns out to be, but I think that we need to prepare, because we're all going to look very foolish. If we build a building for 150 kids, and in 3 years, I'm back here saying, we've got 300 kids in this school, what are we going to do with the other 150 that we knew were coming up, but we only built the school for 150? And I know
How does that
we
make
had
us look foolish?
What's that?
How does that make us look foolish?
Because we build a school for 150 and we have an extra 150 kids that we have to deal with?
But I thought we were talking about phases here. I thought that sounds logical.
Okay, but if you build a phase, how fast do you think we're going to build phases? If they take 2 years of phase, in 4 years, 4 or 5 years, we're going to be suffering. The kids in our school are going to be in that high school well over capacity. You're going to have classrooms in that school, years in that school where they're going to be over capacity.
So what I understand then is your proposal, what you want to pursue is move forward with not phase 1.
No, I'm okay with phase 1.
Project.
No.
You're just not, okay, I just want to make
Phase
sure
one.
I'm understanding you.
Phase 1 that will handle,
The 151 students.
plus, we need,
Plus the brown piece.
as long as we can stay under what the recommended square footage is and accommodate
Okay,
our bubbles.
plus the brown, okay.
Yeah. We're still under the recommended,
Yep,
that right there.
That
There's
right.
the allowable.
okay.
Dan, did you guys crunch numbers on that?
Yeah, do we have numbers?
Did you guys, like, just to pencil it out?
Costs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Just for data.
No, but we will.
I wanted to see which way this was all going.
Right. And that's probably a decision we need to make today is there agreement in this room of feasible, non-feasible? Okay, that's something that we need to come to agreement on, make sure we're clear, so that as you go to the next part of this, which is cost estimating, that we have no, what I'm saying, no wasted effort. And then the other thing I think you brought up, I think is really important, because we got drilled 2 years ago at Select Committee in a public meeting on the fact that, well, you did the cohort projections, you did the enrollment projections, but did you do any economic analysis? Do you have any other data to support, where the enrollment projections are going? And so these guys have actually, the district and the consultants are actually providing those kinds of things along with the study that are, birth rates and purchase of commercial properties and stuff like that.
Just for information on the birth rates that we have, this came from the hospital. Rock Springs has averaged, in 2017, they had 339, they had 2016, they had 373, 2015, 366, and 2014, 362. So they have the total here is 1,440 kids that are gonna be, that the next 4 years are gonna be starting school. So
Do we have
it's gonna be,
records as to whether those families lived in the district or not?
yes, that was just from Rock Springs alone. That didn't include Green
Okay.
River or Superior or
Okay.
anything, but that is what the hospital provided me, is the birth rates for the last 4 years. So to the point that Dan was saying, the kindergartens and first grades are gonna start filling up with these kids coming up.
You guys gonna include that in the study?
Yes.
That covers what Troy.
Good.
Yeah, well,
I was there.
it was pretty hard when you're in a meeting and you've got legislators and they're drilling you like, well, this doesn't, account for any economic conditions
Well,
or,
And
and that's where we just
Right.
need to make sure that that is a foundational part of this study so that we can, to a reasonable degree, take away that argument.
Well, and here, what I have too, at different counties, where's Sweetwater in this? I know I just had it. Sweetwater County had probably the lowest decline in, the jobs, so they were hit least with the last. We had a job loss of less than 1%. However, the total payroll grew by $15 million. That's in comparison to Natrona they lost 865 jobs. We lost 197. Albany County lost 340. Carbon County lost 342. And Campbell County lost 771. So our population is staying more,
It did drop.
more stable than some of the other areas in the state. So, and all that will be included in the presentation, the report when we put that in, so.
Well, then the other thing is just building permits for residential that have been issued.
Yeah,
Construction starts.
yeah.
Quite a few.
Well, yeah, they're still building houses like there's
Yeah.
no more tomorrow.
We have,
Entry level?
no, these are like 240.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're big houses.
250,
Yeah.
350.
If you want it.
We had
It's
73.
probably $500,000.
Where's my notes? I've got that
Like
here.
yours.
Yeah, but see what's
That's why
happening is
I do
that
numbers.
nobody's leaving Rock Springs anymore. It used to be when guys retired, they'd leave. They're not. And they're hiring the younger kids out at the mines. They're coming in, they're building their families, and they're having to build a new house.
And the older guys have their grandkids.
Yeah,
That's why I was just thinking they're probably staying because they got their kids, so they're
That's right.
here, grandkids.
and the housing start numbers that I found, I can't find my little note, but in 2015, we were at, 2016 dropped, but 2017 was back up toward the 2015 levels. So the housing construction starts are starting to pick up again as we go through. Yeah, but I did new construction as opposed to, I just looked at new as opposed to that when I was doing that, so.
So let's go through our scenarios one at a time. So scenario one.
And those are, I think those are on that second that we have that we came down to before. That's on that second placemat kind of thing.
The smaller.
The smaller one is what we actually came up with on those.
Okay, so scenario one, are we in agreement that that is not one that we're going to spend a lot of time on, that it's not feasible for this study?
Scenario one or this?
Okay,
On the smaller one,
Yeah, on the smaller one, it's,
Where it showed
Okay.
on mine.
yeah,
This one. Right here.
yeah.
Yeah, if you fast forward to see,
yeah.
Troy, that'll give you your, there
That
you go.
one.
okay, see it is.
Those other two have already been
Yeah.
thrown out.
Oh, the modules.
Yep,
Yeah.
That's one we're looking
And
at.
so this is the,
That is
if
using
you
the,
include
if we
this
include
piece,
that piece.
it's
42,
42,000?
yeah.
correct.
And that came in to light after some additional information we got this morning.
What was that that actual square footage, 42,000?
42,175.
thank you.
Which is still, 12,000 under,
Under,
Our
under the
calculator,
total.
for the SEC calculator.
under what the allowable is.
Real quick, for everybody's edification, our SSC calculator projected for 151 students, 54,439 square feet. That's more for your information. And this one here is 42,175, so.
For how many students were we talking with the additional 14? What was the increase?
That one actually, we didn't run the total of what that gets you in capacity based on classroom and teaching stations.
Gonna be around 200, I would guess.
It added potentially another 6 dedicated teaching stations. They'll mimic.
So if you
Actually,
average about
Where are you
22, students per classroom,
I can actually tell you.
how many classrooms are in that?
22, 3, 5.
It's gonna take these 5 spaces and it's gonna mimic them to add one.
Right, so you're gonna add 5. 5 times 22 is 10, 110 kids. So you're gonna be 244 about.
Yeah, if you take those 5, I'm sure you could potentially get up to 130, but another 130.
I have one other question. The original proposed satellite, the whole enchilada.
Yep.
How many square feet was that?
121?
121 and change.
21 and some change.
121, it was
Yeah.
for 564 kids, I think.
Yeah, 560, 570 in that range. I can't remember the exact number.
He just left.
121.
121,000
square feet roughly around there.
So the
Okay,
plan was to
thank you.
move everything in there? Just
Just the overage,
just the overage?
just the overage. So one of the, how many of you folks, have you been to Rock Springs High School? Okay, Rock Springs High School.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, though. It was Leadership Wyoming in 2007, so it's been a while.
That wasn't too long ago. One of the issues that you try to convey about Rock Springs High School, why I'm so, I guess, anal about we have to get these kids out of here, is because right now, parking we're way under. You can't park up there. We can't secure our high school because we can't have kids eat lunch at our school. It has to be an open campus. I don't know of how many other schools in Wyoming have to be open campus, but we can't be a closed campus.
Because you don't have.
We don't have the facility big enough.
Cafeteria.
We don't have, so at the one select committee meeting when Phil Nicholas says, well, Dan, your issue could be solved by busing. You can't solve it by busing because then the kids will be locked at that school, no way to leave.
Right.
You know, so it's really critical that we watch, what our capacity is, because otherwise, if we start creeping up, over into the 1,700, and we only take 150 kids out, you're still gonna be 200 kids over, and we still have a terrible issue with capacity. I mean, as far as safety for the kids, getting them in and out of the parking lots, adding other buses up to there. I mean, if you've ever been to our bus stop, Google Map and Google it. You can see we can fit 3-4 buses maximum in front of the school. I mean, even getting the kids there with a bus becomes an issue. So years ago, they made the decision to keep adding on to the school. Now it turns out it was probably not the best decision. But we can't go back.
So if you open this new school, I guess it just pulls some of those students
It does.
out and relieves that.
It does.
That issue for you.
And that's my, what you were saying, Paul, about, phasing. I'm okay with phasing. I'm just asking, hey, collectively, let's come up with a plan that we can all live with, because I don't want to phase and then in a year and a half, we have to do a white paper report or a white page report and say, hey, we need to phase this again. Because then it's going to be like, okay, how many times are we going to phase this? Let's phase it to cure the problem that we're going to have in the next 2, 3, 4, 8 years. We can't keep doing like we did with the original.
Following what you're saying, Dan, but I don't know why you've got that fear of going back and asking again. We've had a problem here of building too big.
Oh, I know, and I'm with you. I really am. I'm in your.
So I don't understand that fear that you're
Okay, let me explain my fear.
Yeah.
We've known this problem is going to happen for the last 5 years. I've been with this district 4 years. For the last 3 of the 4 years, I've been going to select committees, asking them to recognize this issue, and so far they've turned us down. We're at 95% for the last over 2 years, and here we are today trying to figure out a plan. That's what my fear is based on.
No action.
no action.
Well, and the numbers
But then it
tell you
takes
that
so long
in the
to
years that
make
it's gonna get
those
worse.
decisions
Yeah.
To actually get.
It's not going away.
I was
If we,
just
if
getting
we
ready
had
to
acted
timeline
on this,
I have no idea.
we had this discussion 2 years ago, we would
I have no idea.
we'd be accommodating 300-400 kids, and we'd be okay. And I'm with you, because anybody who knows, you deal with me through limits.
Yeah,
I uphold taking enhancements on. I hate enhancements with a passion,
yeah.
because then it becomes my issue, which means it becomes our district issue. Okay? So no one can argue that, hey, I'm not in your camp as far as, building schools too big, because I'm there. I know what it takes firsthand to maintain these buildings and operate.
Right.
I'm just saying, I'm really apprehensive to come back and ask for more square footage because of my past history in this district. That's it.
What if it's a gym? Would you enhance that?
Yeah, we paid for 2 gyms, and now I'm paying for it again.
Okay,
So one more question. If we go with this proposal, how many years do we think that buys us? Is that where you're going?
we're gonna get there. I mean, I've got this really spelled out well. I've responded to the district's, requests, perceptions, desires in the facility plan. Okay, and one of the things I wanna make sure we do, and this may be ultra conservative, okay, is we need, again, I think we need to take away any potential argument that can undercut, so over asking for square footage, okay, that's a potential argument to say no, right? I mean, it is. Over designing for more students necessarily than what would be reasonable, driven out by our methodology, driven out by state statute, driven out by commission, rules and regs. Okay, so, I really like this because I know it's not as much as you could get, okay, but it's less than what you could get, right? And so it's conservative, it's not what I think you as a district would ultimately want, okay? But we're gonna try to take these steps that are reasonable, they are solid from a statutory point of view, from a data point of view, they are conservative, and yet they're responsive to a so one of the blessings of this study is now we get to, we had accusations before of, listen, Rock Springs is going to go down in numbers, right? Does that happen?
Nope.
Okay. So now we have further data that says, okay, guys, this is a trend. It's not, your hypothesis with regard to the drop in the energy market and all that stuff hasn't happened, and so that's kind of where we're trying to go. Charlie, you had something you wanted to say earlier?
I was just gonna say, so when we get to the Google map, I wanted to show the site, wanted to put to Dan's point, the site restrictions on the existing site, because right now they're up against the railroad, and you can't expand, there's no opportunities for expansion of the site. So this one, it's a big, thing that we need to focus on, plus the parking ordinance for Rock Springs is astronomical.
Toughest in the state.
Well, you said that there isn't enough parking, but you're saying they require a lot of parking?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
So
Like-
how-
By city ordinance.
It's,
because the ordinance has changed because of the high school.
Oh, okay.
yeah, and we actually managed to revisit the situation with the satellite and have to rewrite it again,
Can't go.
but they only reduced it by approximately a third, and it's still the highest
But
in
if
the
we go
state for
anywhere else,
population.
Yeah, when we started the satellite high school, we had 60 acres of land, and with the projected size of the school, we could not fit the parking on our 60 acres that would have been required for the building.
Before we transition, if there's just a couple of things before we move to the next part, Troy, that you were talking about, understanding all those compliance pieces that we need to make sure that we do. I think, one, the teachers at Rock Springs High School, they are a select group that are currently teaching on their prep, because that is the only way that they can accommodate the number of classes that they need to provide the prerequisites for kids to graduate. So we are paying stipends for our teachers, so they're losing their planning time so that they can offer things for kids, so they have opportunities. One of those classes that is being taught on the prep hour is the Energy Resource Academy. So if we didn't do that and the teacher wasn't willing to do so, we wouldn't be able to fulfill one of the academy structures that we have. It's gonna get worse. The second goes about the cafeteria that Dan was mentioning. So in reality, here's what the high school experiences every single day. So we don't have enough in the cafeteria for the kids to stay and eat. They leave, it's an open campus. For the kids that still stay there, they literally have to take their lunch trays, they walk down the hall by the classes, they go into the gym at the other end of the hall, and then they have tables set up in the balcony on top of the gym because the cafeteria doesn't have enough room. So that's counting the kids that leave, that go and drive, but then even the ones that do stay, we don't have enough room for them. They have 3 lunches, and then they eat on the top in the balcony. That's how they make it work now. And that's not counting more kids that are gonna come in. And I think the third, Troy, to go with what you were saying, you were talking about what the district wants. But I'm gonna turn that the other way, and I'm gonna say, this is what our kids need there. It's not just what the district wants. We can't meet the needs of the kids to get their basic requirements to graduate if we don't do something. And we can't offer the classes. We don't have the space for them to make it work. I truly do not know if something doesn't come, where we're gonna put these kids. And how are we gonna accommodate their instruction? So it's not just about what the district wants. It's about what these kids need and what our community needs.
And I do know, living in Green River, there are several parents I know of that either are driving their child to Green River and have them enrolled in Green River, or are considering it because of some of the issues at the high school. That they feel that with the class sizes and everything, that they will get a better education, driving them physically over and back to Green River. I know 2 or 3 parents that are doing that right now, and I've talked to several others that would consider that as well.
Okay. All right, so far A, B, not feasible. You're gonna list why they're not feasible very briefly. We all agree on C, D. Okay, everybody agree that setting modulars on the high school site. Okay, and the reason this isn't feasible, but we cited at least for, I don't know, was there a cost associated? There would be. There's no cost associated with this?
With the modulars?
Yeah, on the existing site.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
it's impossible.
Infrastructure.
Okay.
Infrastructure.
So I'm not so sure we need to spend any more time on this. We probably should make this as unfeasible. Is that correct? Okay, so Paul, you're giving us a good look here.
Well, that's on the satellite high school site, not the existing high school site.
Yeah, the existing high school site was,
So it is actually feasible. You could do that.
That's what I thought, is you just.
But really, it kind of validates that the solution is to do something at the satellite high school site. And do you want to do modulars, or do you want to do a more permanent solution that's
So,
still setting the
Go through
same
the exercise.
impetus in motion, just on a smaller phase?
So the only reason I think, I mean,
It's more of a
so
modular
are we
stuff.
going to put cost to this one to show how ridiculous it is to,
modulars where at the.
on the high school site?
The high school,
And
not
I,
the existing high school.
On the satellite.
Satellite site.
so I was thinking that was the existing on that one.
No.
No,
Okay,
Well, that's
Got
what I
it.
was
I
thinking
think the
too.
Yeah.
modular on the existing.
No,
are-
we axed out.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's already
Right.
done. It's dead, it can't.
okay, so the one for the modular on the high school site is, that's
That's gone.
non-feasible, got it? And so we're talking about the, BLM site, and then we are going to do that to show the infeasibility of that with regard to the cost. And you guys probably ought to find out whether it's even possible.
I think you add it, and it's not that it's not infeasible, it's that it's not reasonable.
Yeah.
It's not the
Yeah.
preferred
From a
option.
suitability
And we
standpoint.
show why,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Pencil it out.
how did you make that larger? Full screen?
Because if we don't show it with
F5.
all the numbers, we're gonna get that question.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
we have all the data.
Yep, you're right.
Okay, so we're good there. Next one here is, oops, sorry, Shelby. Okay, this expand class schedule, so that doesn't have a cost to it. Financial, it doesn't have a financial, oh, that's right, because of that. So we probably should
Show that cost.
demonstrate that the cost isn't necessarily on the state side
It's not on the
for
facility
facilities,
side.
with regard to facilities, but when it comes
On
to
the
the
operation.
state side, with the district side, for your operations and all that.
Operational
Okay.
salaries for.
Got it, okay.
And I do think, so the, you add the impact to the students with the impact into some of those other sites, you know, the crossing over and, WHSSA, I mean, AA and all those things, transportation, you add all that in there.
How many kids were you able to accommodate with those hour extensions? Just,
209, is that
Couple
what?
hundred,
Yeah,
couple hundred.
just so that if anything, that would be where I would
Well,
want
when
it.
we threw that number out there, we weren't aware that your teachers are already teaching
Yeah.
on their 0 hour or their planning hours,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Our utilization factor at the high school, it is something that you don't talk about anymore, but we used to, remember when we did Horizon School, I had to do utilization. Our utilization factor on almost every one of the schools is at 95%.
So I think those are good numbers to put in this,
Yeah.
in this, all options, so that it's all there.
So, I know you're taking notes, we are recording this, so you can, yesterday we had a recording issue and it didn't record, unfortunately, so hopefully it'll do it today. So, yeah, but make sure that we get all these things you're bringing up, let's bring into this study and make sure they're all documented.
I agree.
Because they're
You might
really,
wanna
really good points.
Check with, Natrona, and I don't know the year, but, they did operate 2 of their high schools out of one building for a year, and you might get some information from them as to just exactly what that meant for them.
But you also, you wanna do the impact.
Right,
Unanticipated impacts that they incurred that you might incur.
exactly.
You had to continue that way.
The ripple effect,
Yeah.
is affected by that choice.
There's always those things that happen that you don't foresee, and you're like, oh.
That's right.
Didn't expect this.
Didn't realize you're gonna have a revolt with the ones that are cooking lunches for you.
Option G was determined as infeasible, district will confirm and include that within it. Okay, the next one, what's it say?
Elementary
Oh, that's right, Lincoln Elementary, you've already explained that, shared it. But we probably want to do this simply because it's a vacant school, right? It's just around the corner from the high school, literally, probably a block if you took the very end of but at any rate, a couple blocks there, 3 blocks. That one's probably reasonable to show in a financial sense as well as pros and cons, because of its proximity to that other school, in fact, that it's vacant. So I think that would be reasonable for us to include. Everybody good with that?
The other thing that I wonder here, as I look through the cons, you said there were code issue cons. I don't see that listed down here in the cons for this option.
When we get into it, so that was actually, some of our later investigation of that building is where we went back to the site between the 2
Okay.
meetings.
I just be sure we get that
Yeah.
documented too, that you've got the code issues with some of those other.
The next one is,
Lincoln, but that was raising the building and starting from
oh,
scratch.
starting from scratch, right? Okay, you got that, and then the last one is,
Washington.
okay,
That was one that had really, if you recall, it had 3 separate chunks of property across the street from each other, and nothing worked. The total square footage of the site was too small.
I have a question. So on the civil side of the Lincoln, if you scraped it, does the other one require utilities to be ran,
They all do.
which could be more than scraping? And then building brand new,
But I think you're gonna have to do
You know what I'm saying?
utilities again
Ready.
on Lincoln.
on this one here,
On Lincoln, yeah, you just
Do
don't
it.
raise Lincoln and then say, okay.
and then do a
let's
tap
go
fee?
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
I don't know, but
Yeah, there's no fire system, so you're talking, for the size of the building, probably a 4 or 6 inch building or a line tap, then you've got your culinary work. The sewer system is bad. In fact, we looking at, before we vacated, looking at sleeving it,
Yeah,
because
Like a
it's
pipe
just
burst
so,
or something.
yeah, it's just really bad.
Stormwater
I was
runoff
thinking maybe
control.
it's cheaper, I don't know where the utilities are, but you could just like build new.
Then it is a really restricted site.
Oh, yeah.
That's really the
That's Lincoln there.
So it's the site, not the utility.
Right
Yeah,
here.
that-
Lower
yeah.
left corner.
Here's a high school.
significant.
So,
Lincoln.
it's important to go, hey, real quick, go down to
That has to
the
be done eventually.
side.
Is that?
You have 3 schools in that little area.
Brendan, you and I figured out the,
That's quite a
Did it?
contested
I
area
got that information.
I think, yeah, like $1.5 million
in terms of,
Yeah,
or something. Yeah, I do remember. It was last year.
no, it's 2 years.
2 years? Time flies, you getting old.
Okay.
City, look at the grid.
So Shelby, this is kind of your first time through. So this is kind of just the basic, right? They're putting it together, but what we've considered, anything else that anything stand out to you that's missing? I know we're gonna add a lot more details, but did you see any scenarios that are missing? Do you feel comfortable with the scenarios we're moving forward with? Any other concerns, cautions?
I don't think so.
Advice.
You know, I think the more information you put in to support the pros and cons of each one, the better. We get the dollar figures, so we have those. And then I do think, I want to go there, but once we get to this whole enrollment
Yep.
picture, I think we need that added into the options on what that enrollment projection looks like with each option. So.
Okay. Yeah, I was,
Good, I mean, good work, I mean, informative, so.
I think too, when we get into the facility plan, because then we have numbers in the facility plan, you'll see what we're talking about, the 8 years and 9 year projections.
Yeah, so I think that'll be helpful, to tie it all together.
I brought up something to Kelly here, is for me is each one of these plans, you know, where you've got your satellite, you've already got design. If you were to make a decision on any one of these plans at the stage that they are, to go forward, how long would you be able on the satellite school to get it to where you'd have kids going into it? Now, if you were to take that Lincoln site at this moment and said, we're taking Lincoln and what is the time frame till we get students?
That'd be good.
So that you're looking at, if this is what you're talking about, Dan, is you're trying to satisfy kids and your need, lay that out for those guys to know how it will impact and how long to make a good decision, which plan could help you out.
Okay, so now let me ask you folks, because I've asked this before and, you know, but I want to hear it from the group, from the SFT group. It was our understanding that since we've already gone, like I mentioned earlier, we've already gone through the hoops, we can be shovel ready for satellite school in months. But would we in fact have to start the process over for anything else? I know with the city we would. What about with the state?
Yeah, you need money.
Exactly. Well, you
Right.
need design
Well-
money for even major renovation.
Right, and, I think that's one question I had in my mind is the satellite design's at 95%, right? You're gonna have to come in and do some adjustment to that design if you're only gonna just build a piece of it, correct?
Yeah, a
So
little
what is
bit,
that
but
cost?
It's, because of the way it's designed and the way this all works out, we're just basically taking the upper level off and knocking the back end off. So, design-wise and getting ready to go to construction is gonna be a fairly simple undertaking, and there's probably enough money left in the last 5% to get close
So
to.
that was my question.
Yeah.
I would include that in there, because that's something we gotta, Brandon, we've gotta be thinking about is, do we need some more design money, or do we have what we need, and timeframes, so.
I'd stick my neck out, Shelby, on that, but I think there's $128,000 left in the last 5% that could be used to modify the bid set. And that would be enough to do what we're talking about as far as the transformation. And then there's no other appropriations or anything needed. It's just like redefining that scope of phase 1.
Okay, great. That was my question. So.
okay, so, Lance, you good?
I am. I was just going to comment on what Dan said. Right now, there's $1.4 million in unspent contract for design, and there's $416,000 that is budgeted but not contracted that's sitting there too. So there's pretty close to $2 million left in that design project.
We could do it for that, Lance.
I'm sure you could, Dan.
It'll be tight, but.
We'd have to get a little extra money for somebody to help you.
Okay, we're gonna take about a 5-minute break. We'll pause our recording.
I wouldn't pause it, leave it go, 'cause that's.
Okay, we'll just leave it going. And so we'll take about a 5-minute break, and then we'll go into the facility plan itself, and we'll get into the details of wants and needs.
No one.
Only needs.
Everything's
Yeah. So,
TI 83 plus.
when I went to,
Square root.
literal business finance class, but when I was in the construction, that's with a bunch of guys, there'd be 6, 8 of us bidding on these projects, so you could tell the generation of the people by the calculator they had.
Right.
So there was a bunch of us with these, we're all crunching numbers, and then the owners, they were probably, at that time, they're in their low 40s, mid 40s. They had these little square brown calculators. There was a group of them crunching.
Right?
Yeah, one thing I was thinking on this Lincoln, it doesn't meet the adequate why? So we would look at it, I would put it in there, okay, we looked at the site, but we built high school and elementary school. Or it doesn't mean. Because I think,
I've got a question.
as a developer, you could scrape it, build, we're not building.
You know what I would do too?
Well,
Why is it not rectilinear?
Let me,
Is something in the site that's
yes,
causing?
it's all the site.
Oh, for just that?
I can pull the site up right now. I actually have Google Earth. Well, I got this site right here. Do you have it? It's right here. So let's see here. Here we go. Right now. This roadway, this building, that is a 100-foot wide, high-pressure water line that needs our power plant.
It is.
Cannot develop anything other than a walking surface basically over the top of it, or you have to provide X amount of bridge coverage to even develop a driving lane.
Okay.
So when you go back to that slide that we had the whole comprehensive build out on, we have a football field and all sorts of other things going on in here. So working the site and getting all our parking was basically making use of it. We did truly just kind of open up and flare it to where the site opened up a little bit for us here to do with the contour.
Oh my God, I like that.
When we did that design, there's actually some steps in the building that we follow the natural grade of the earth, so we're not, we're better balanced.
So you've got ramps.
I would have jumped
just
1.4.
I jumped, in this case, it's just, I jumped the ones up, 5 here, so this entrance is just a little bit, feet here, so carry it. When the rest of it would have ever been built on, there would have been another set at the back.
Okay.
Would have been 3 stages.
Yeah, I've always found that it's worth spending 5 times the amount of grading as it is to do that to your building, because in the future, it's a nightmare you can't get away from.
It's fairly,
21 inches, I just put all money on grade and put it in the building well, and then you do something about grading.
To your left.
Always from.
well, if you did it, you wanted to do it that site, the water line, you want to build and then taper off, because there's no further excavation that can occur on that, so your thought there would be, you start at the high point and have to fill in, and then go, like you said, it is gonna be more costly to do something like that, but, ideally, it helps us because it puts that much more cover over that water line too.
I did buildings where we stepped it, every one of my clients came back and said, why did you do this?
Yes.
Because now we wanted to expand this room, but we can't because there's an 18-inch break between the rooms.
Well,
It happens all the time.
When we went through that, knowing that was at Culinary Arts, and a lot of their shipping and receiving going through the building, that's something that we had to put a lot of thought into, because we minimized it as much as we could, because otherwise we were in a situation that you could have jumped on a dolly and had dolly races like down a very long ramp. And
Well, like I say, it's one of those things, I made the mistake a couple of times, I would never do it again, because always clients that come back and say, man, you really did us a disservice when you did that. Did one at Estes Park. They hate it, and they have every right to. It was a stupid move, should have never done it.
Tell the boys on DE.
So,
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's the other thing we get stuck facing is they look at that site grading cost. And on this site specifically, they knew we couldn't start at the low end and go to the high because then all of a sudden your building's half underground.
Well, they were the ones though that argued in Casper, we had one where the architect wanted to step in.
They're like,
Team were the ones saying, "Are you guys doing it?" Yeah, so I'm surprised if you had the conversation, they told you to do it?
Yeah, we've seen it both ways. It just depends on.
I gotta talk with Coleman, and if he ever suggests.
Well, all they did on this one was ask,
They look
what's
at
the
me like,
grading like?
they just shake their heads, they're like,
Benefit, cost.
like,
Showed them
it's all
that.
good.
It was no longer a discussion after that.
Did you know where the
Still,
restrooms
it's a
were?
disservice in every district
No,
to do it.
but I'm okay for it now.
My
but I know I'm
advice,
gonna need it.
don't do it.
Time to get a break, but yeah.
Legislation changes, how much money will we actually get?
Yeah, I don't know how we're gonna get money in the future for buildings. That's what they're gonna have to decide, because there is no mechanism right now for people. Don't know. It's up to those guys under the gold dome.
Yeah.
Not like old phone right now.
But yeah, look at that, because it's, what did they call it? It's their energy group. I could ask Brian about it. But it's a small scale oil refinery to do like small petroleum, like household oils and things like that. You're not talking like big automotive oils and lubricants. And I think the projected employment for that was between 30 and 50 people. So there was an article on Sweetwater Now about it, and it was in the newspaper, but it's been about, when did Robert from Carpet One last time?
Oh, God, that's been a long time.
So about 7-8 months now, was when he first went to the zoning, or for county approval.
Well, what everybody fails to understand is Rock Springs is not really built on energy.
No.
We have a sustainable with all of the mining and the fertilizer industry. Everything's sustainable. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, I thought you were retired. They drug the old guy out of the closet and dusted him off and. Doing good.
How are you doing?
Doing good. Good. So if you're back out, does that mean Marty's coming back to you?
Marty?
No. Huh?
Second Kelsey?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a substitute teacher at the high school, and he's also on, what board is he on? Hospital board?
He's on the hospital board.
Yeah.
I see him.
So I get to see him once in a while.
Pretty funny.
So I'm president of the hospital foundation. So quarterly meetings.
That was hilarious walking through the high school.
No, I just came back.
I
from
signed
this
in Green River the other day.
little
too.
bar,
One
project.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's
Well, I
over
did
there too.
Yeah, he never left high
I
school.
know, I like it.
So this MRSA study involves that.
Speaking of, so, I wondered if that was the last project.
There's nobody there. So,
Is this work?
no. So that's what I'm doing.
And enjoying retirement.
I am totally enjoying retirement. It is great.
Thinking about it.
I really.
It's coming soon.
Perfect. Kept myself way busy. But I listened to people and I shouldn't have done that. I said, you're gonna be bored. You need to volunteer for a lot of different things to stay involved. Man, I can't wait till those terms are up.
Yeah, that often happens. All of a sudden you find yourself busier than when you were doing your job.
Well, yeah, it's interfering with what I wanna do.
Yeah.
Because nobody can have all these meetings in the same week, right? So every week I've got a meeting of some group. And it just,
So how do you travel with that, right?
I just miss meetings.
Yeah. Good way to do it.
Yep. So when terms are up, I'm up. That'll be how that goes. I'll keep the few things I like. Get rid of the rest.
Well, Western's got a lot of challenges coming up.
Oh, they do. They do. They got challenges beyond challenges with their sewer problems and all that stuff, oh my gosh.
They got sewer, they got electrical, they got heating, you know. For Carla, I think the best thing she could do is just go out for a bond or something, close parts of the school down and just start
Yeah. But, you know, that was, hate to kick a dead dog or a lame dog, but, you know, problems with the prison. Well, now she's experiencing the same kind of problems. You know, things weren't done the way they should have been done in the field, and now it's raising its head.
Well, we got the same thing up in Cody,
Yeah.
or Powell with, Resident Hall up there.
Yeah.
Bones growing up on the walls, because the way they
Yeah.
built it, the way they built it, you know.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And to go right back to it, if you keep doing projects the way they are right now.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I'll tell you that.
Seeing it come together.
School we did in Farson. The SFD
I
did
didn't
it
even
right.
pay him.
They hired those.
Yeah.
Well, he can pay me.
There you
Cool.
go.
Did not work
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
It was way, yeah.
It would be all fitting up project in the community. You could tell the generations went to college and by the calculator. Those are beautiful.
That was that first school there, 83, 86 and then 5 were out.
Old school, that's right.
I don't know how old school.
I don't know now, that's all I know.
Yeah,
So,
oh, yeah.
if I lose this, I'll have a
Really old
project.
school.
Last night I was working with, I have a
Any
business
technology.
major. I love doing math. My wife's a teacher, so she wrote me all this, and I was like, well, gotta teach him math. He's really good at math, so it's like, I don't read it, but I do math. How long have you been in teaching? Okay. You went into administration?
Yeah, and then I went to an elementary there, so training my high school kids for elementary kids. I was in both.
Yeah.
Both.
So we would have had to.
They do, it changes their.
Extra.
Like that, we were here 5 years.
My wife, she's been 6, first, second, you know, all through there.
No.
It's okay one-on-one or.
Yeah, Anderson.
Well, and what they did was they started off with
It was Jim Fraley. Sean is the new guy. He's a really nice guy.
I don't think you tell everybody what it's on.
I just went and signed it, like those are neat, or my name, I'm like,
I can monitor.
very personal. How you see it form, a welcome.
My problem file, all correct.
Not that I've ever had to go to, but if I did, I'm not very shy, I was still
Contractors.
Yeah, these issues you guys have, gotta get it addressed.
30 seconds after you were notified. So, you know what I mean?
Years ago, you go.
There you go.
So are you back with,
Yeah, I was telling you.
yeah, Western, Riverton?
They try to cover it.
You got
They
all
don't.
the way from-
There's
from
a.
Cheyenne.
Hey, Dan, share the conversation
Jackson out.
of what we had.
Now, unfortunately,
The process of push it doesn't clean.
Sometimes you have to.
So, there's why.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started.
See it, Dennis. Process. It's interesting. Once you really see it, so he'll share it with you.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start our, just our normal facility plan document here that you guys have prepared, like every year before this. Just a little bit modified, of course. With that, I think we've captured everybody who's here except Dell. I'll keep that highlighted just in case he, comes in the next hour here or so. I did just, do a screen capture of Rock Springs, just the different, we don't have to go into details, of course, but just where your different schools and buildings are within Rock Springs. Here's your Farson Eden, school, and then your Wamsutter school, so, those.
Farson Eden School.
That's the new one or the old one?
That's the school site has updated, latest, update on Google Earth. School site. Okay, so, with that then, we're just gonna walk right on through this. You guys spent time before this meeting getting ready for this, so we don't have to hash through the things we don't have to hash through. We'll just kind of go through. But tracts and deeds, the acreage on these is really important for your block grant payments because it covers groundskeepers. So we ask you to confirm that each year. These don't have acreages on them.
Because they're
Part of the,
they're in a trailer park,
okay,
and we pay,
got it. So,
Is
okay,
it leased?
I live in
Lot
one.
rent?
right.
Yeah, we pay lot.
The land itself is not owned.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, so we're good there. Land leases, okay, so we've kind of covered that, you confirmed. These can have, this specifically is at the college, correct?
Correct.
You've got that 50-year lease so that where your new alternative school is. So we got that one. Property profiles, we have you look at these. These addresses and details are forwarded to WDE that help them do what they do. The square footages and stuff are important on this. These are driven by, the majority of them are driven by actual measurements, by a measurement team, went out, did all their measurements, stuff like that. You guys get paid. This has an effect on the major maintenance payments. ADM comes from WDE to us. It's plugged in a calculator. It produces an allowable square footage. And then things such as, leases and stuff can affect whether you get credit for an allowable or not. But anyway, so your gross square footage isn't really, well, it could be, potentially if your allowable met your gross square footage, but your allowable is what actually determines what your major maintenance payments are.
And that's just on the school buildings, the rest of them are teachers.
Yeah, that's right. There does come a certain, on ancillary buildings, there does come a certain amount of major maintenance as well, through the calculation. Anyway, those are just important to do. That's
A lot of teachers is.
minor physical alterations, so you're saying you have some minor physical alterations.
Right.
Apparently that could have us go back and remeasure, is what we were really asking for here. I don't know.
Well, we demoed Lowell,
Okay,
so we lost whatever that square footage was.
okay.
For Lowell,
Yeah.
we actually had them go back and remeasure that one. FEA did.
After the demo?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so that one
But you still deducted the old school.
yeah, we fixed that. We got I'm actually going through the verification on the drawings and stuff like that right now.
Okay.
I haven't had a chance to finish that yet. We got the numbers back from FEA and they had done your goals.
Okay.
So, and that was done probably late last fall.
Summer.
Oh, no, I mean, that's when they went back through, is late last fall.
That's right, I remember that.
Okay, so we're good there. Is that what you were referring to on that one? Or is there some other minor, have you changed okay, so we're good?
Yep.
I can uncheck that?
Mhm.
Okay. And so what we're trying to do is bring FEA back into the state and go around the state and update drawings and make sure that we have the latest data, because we know it affects major maintenance. Districts have reviewed leases and verifies accuracy, so that's good. Districts reviewed enhancements, verifies accuracies, that's checked, that's good.
And I did fix that note in there and got the
Okay,
proper funding streams and the amounts corrected that was reported.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mhm.
yep.
I had to go back into the back end and get that one cleaned up.
Okay, district appropriations update. So this has to do with you, Brandon, now. So here are is that big enough for everybody? Can you see okay? Here. I was kind of watching you, kind of leaning forward, so
Thank you.
it's almost as big as I can get. I could probably make it just a little bit larger.
Thank you.
Okay, so we do review on a yearly basis, just your different projects out there, capital funds, and make sure that we, from a statutory point of view, have to revert money in a timely fashion. So we always like to walk through with the district, and so let's go this 143, Dan, that did have at one point major capital monies. and the district chose to, out at, Desert Elementary Middle School, and the district chose to use major maintenance to remedy that, so those monies were reverted prior to this.
Can I get them back?
No.
No. So for my notification, where's that?
Wamsutter.
Center of the university.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
It is.
Yep.
I built that intersection.
Oh.
I did, that's
Okay.
city, right?
Yeah, Metropolis.
Yeah, the Metropolis.
144, closer out.
Okay, now, new east side, right, so we've got, that's completely expended, right? So project complete, no funds for remaining to revert, so yep. Now, 145, I put a question mark, New Farson Eden, so we've got the
Yeah.
27, okay, we got about 4 million more.
So Dan, here's where they're at. They have, you have 4.9. You got 2.9 left. If the legislations go through, they're gonna reappropriate $2 million of it and leave 2.9 left to finish the project.
For Farson?
On the Farson appropriations.
He's asking why revert part of it and not,
They're reappropriating $2 million of that appropriations to carry, is where the money will go, and leave 2.9 million there.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm serious. I don't joke. So on that one, you have 4.9 to finish the project, everything's contracted. They're gonna take 2 of it and leave you with 2.9 left.
All right.
That should be adequate amount, shouldn't it, to complete the project?
We shouldn't have to spend any more than we already have contracted.
I mean, you guys run a tight ship, so.
so, the project's complete though, right?
No.
No.
It's still in
But
motion.
everything's
Oh,
contracted.
so you have like,
Yeah, everything is contracted unless something.
Goes.
So let me ask you, hey Lance, what happens if something unexpected comes up and it has to be taken care of and Hogan doesn't come through with money or whatever? How does that work?
Well, we still have, let me look real quick. We have probably 700,000 in contingency still.
Oh, is that, okay, I was thinking that we had 10%.
Bear with me a minute and I will verify that right now.
10% to finish the job.
You got a lot of cash, you got
Okay.
pushing $3 million.
So why don't we divert that to our solution?
I am not allowed to do that. Yeah, I'm not a legislator. That goes back to our conversation there.
Dan, we have 588,000 left in contingency.
Okay.
Plus the stuff that's not obligated yet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got another 2 million,
Out of
2.9.
that, Brandon, just keep in mind too, out of that 4 million that you're talking about there, that 588,000 is in that 4 million.
Okay.
Yeah. So for being good stewards,
Yeah.
we can't, it's unfortunate that we don't have the ability to take that money and put it towards our solution.
There is a process for that.
We're working on that with some other districts right now, but
So,
I think what Dell and I have been talking, we're gonna go make a request for your money in the supplemental.
Okay.
I think, you know, what we've been talking about is, and one thought I just had was, you wanna go ask for it all, for the whole satellite school.
Oh, no. We
which
want to ask for what we just discussed.
Yeah, which we think would probably get this, and then you would get nothing, or do we want to go ask for your preferred option from the study?
Just so that you know, when I presented my plan to this school, our school board, I asked that question, and they have given me the nod, and they agreed with me to fight the fight for what we just talked about
What we just talked about,
in its entirety.
okay. Yeah, but we're prepared to
Okay.
go do that, so.
And let us know when we need to be there
every
Make that request.
every time.
And I would say every time it's gonna come
Everyone.
up. Every time we're talking budget.
And coming force.
Okay.
so I got address next year's facility plan for the remaining funds. I don't know if you guys will be done by then, but.
Okay.
So that's what I put, 2 million
Right.
being requested to be reverted
Okay.
now, and then the remaining next year be looked at.
Very good.
Okay,
I'd say
11,
reappropriate it to other projects, so I know where it's headed later. So we're not reverting it.
Okay, I'm sorry, reappropriation,
Yeah.
thank you.
Project in motion, reappropriate $2 million is bringing request for the remaining funds will be, yep. That'll help.
Is that, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Do you want to mention specific legislators' names, or?
No, sir.
Like quick enough on that?
Okay, good. 11:47, that's a little bit of humor on a Friday afternoon. New Independence, alternative school, it's done 100%.
Revert.
11:47, revert made funds, great. And,
How much funding's left there?
like, what is that? Where are we at? Right there?
Pennies.
$2,000.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
We were efficient on that one, huh?
Okay, and then 11:48, Stagecoach.
Done.
It's done, right? Nothing to revert?
Yep.
I don't know why I put that. Oh, 11:48, that's right. Project in motion, no, did I miss 11:48? What am I looking at? I didn't. put
11:48 was
11:48.
reverted last
I
year,
was gonna
closed last
say
year.
that
Okay.
2,500 we just talked about looks like it was already referred.
So project is complete, right?
Yes.
No funds remaining, sir?
Your satellite.
Okay. And then this last one, satellite, close that one out, we're done. Oh, review next year, okay, sounds good. Okay, we're good? Brandon?
Go back up to the chart again.
Sure.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, so now we can go with, security funds. PM? Lance, you're gonna take this one?
Yes, I am. I've got to get my stuff up here. I got to get the right one on. Bear with me. Gotta get it. Okay. So, we know that, in 2014 that there was $9 million that were, allocated for security. And the projects were defined in 2015. And with that, they had the assessment, the facility assessments done by FDA, and that created those facility projects that you're aware of, Dan, that we have. And also, they created in 2015 the security remedy guide as well.
Mm-hmm.
And within that remedy guide and with the assessments, there's 8 priorities that were established. And that's what you've got basically for your security money. Also, there was a House Enrolled Act that allowed you, that allows you to take 10% of your security money for the years 2016 to 2018 and use that for security, pretty much anything you need to for security. And there's also concerns that the security money, there wasn't enough there for design, and so you're able to use your major maintenance money, or your 10% major maintenance security money for that design.
Hey, Lance, hold on a minute. Can you go back? I thought that one-time 10% was just for that 1 year. You're saying it's.
Well, it was a school district may expend up to 10% of the amount distributed under the major maintenance program for the period commencing July 1st, 2016 and ending July 1st, 2018 for safety and security. It was that biennium.
Okay.
And just to be watching, we have made the request that be included in this year's budget this year biennial budget as well, and the wording is in the bill now.
Okay.
Fingers crossed it stays to allow that use.
All right, sorry, I just want to
That's
clarify.
okay. And Dan, there have been some changes since we talked last about this too, that, if you have some elements, some security elements that you're not using that money for, or you need to, supplement another element, you can, move the funds between the project appropriations, but the request has to be in writing and acknowledge that you realize that there won't be any backfilling of those elements. If you take money from one to put it on another, you're not going to come back they're not going to come back the next assessment period and see that you're not done with that and then reallocate money for that. So keep that in mind as well. Now we have some flexibility.
Okay, but just so that I'm clear, but we could still use major maintenance money if we chose to do so.
Yeah, you can use major maintenance money on things that apply for or that are appropriately spent for major maintenance, but
Right.
you know, you still can't buy computers with major
Right.
maintenance money, but you can buy computers that are related
For
to a security or cameras or whatever with your 10%.
Right, got it.
So yeah, so basically there's three pots of money that you have there: regular major maintenance, 10% security, and also the capital or the component security.
Okay.
So as an example, what Douglas did is they took all the money from those categories and used it to build 2 security vestibules at the front of the middle school and the high school.
Right.
So then, the legislature's been concerned about the slow deployment of the funds. So the SFD proposed an additional $17 million for the next fundings, and it wasn't, because of the slow deployment, it wasn't received real well. And also, if there's more funding available through Homeland Security in different ways, then you can get with Amber and she might be able to help you out with some of that on where you might be able to look for that.
Hey, can I talk real quick on the slow deployment? Because I want to make sure that everyone knows, and anybody who views this video knows, you know, one of the reasons why there's such a slow deployment is because there's no education on the electronic systems, like for locking devices and stuff. There really is lacking. You have all these people that will sell one type of device, but everybody else system, you know, they're not integrated. I mean, they only integrate with one particular system. But like in our school district, for instance, prior to me, they came in and they put in locking devices, and it didn't matter because the locking devices was only specific to that door. So if you wanted to take and put in a credential, you had to go to that door. Well, then as we progress, and then you have web-based systems, but not everybody's web-based system is interchangeable. So what happens is there's a lack of education out there to get with somebody. You got all these guys come in, they all know their systems, but then they explain to us, and it's like, okay, A, what works best with our IT department, and then what works best with what we have. And you look at Farson, now I've got S2 system up in Farson that doesn't integrate with anything else that I have. So that's where the hang-up is. When you look at a multiple portion project like locking systems, electronic access, it really becomes a complex ball of wax because you want to take care of everything so that you can look at your computer and handle every school with one program, but it takes forever to do that.
I can just tell you with the feedback that I'm getting, first of all, they don't understand that. They're legislators, they're commissioners, all they see is, what? You got 207,000, you get 207,000, you don't want this? What's going on? You know, so what we're getting is they're looking at the raw data, and all they see is, oh, they obviously don't care about this. So we try to explain, and we've had, you know, yours is obviously one that I've never explained that concept before, but we have many different reasons that districts have not expended their funds. We understand that. But we can't tell every story to these people to the point where they can understand. They're looking at it from a much higher level, and their concern is, we've given them an opportunity. We just had another incident here recently. Why are these people not taking advantage of this opportunity? That's what we're getting.
So would it help if I had our group, our facility folks, send emails to these folks? To at least educate them?
I obviously can do what you want, but I'm going to tell you, walk with caution, because some things you say can be interpreted much differently than you would think you would. They're looking at it again from a much different level. They don't have physical knowledge of how to operate buildings and what to do. If you send something to them, they may take that as, wow, they really don't want to do this. So I'm just telling you, walk with caution if you decide to do that.
One thing we've been talking about doing, and I don't know if this will come to fruition or not, is making the security deployment an interim study, because we've seen a lot of districts that haven't moved forward for the reasons you're talking about. There's a lot of complications that were never figured into this bucket of money. And so we've talked about an interim study to do that. Whether that'll happen or not, I don't know. But we've made.
Another thing that I see from my perspective, and Paul and I have had this discussion, I've requested this, is that really this was the FEA assessment, the security assessment, the development of the security guidelines and all that was done in top secret. And where, for instance, the building condition guidelines, Dan and Troy, you both remember this too, that the districts and the project managers for the school facilities were all involved with that, and we had extensive training on understanding what the security or what the condition assessments were all about and how to use them. And in this case, with this money coming up and you have $438 for door locks, it really doesn't make a lot of sense for what it does. And I think if we have the opportunity to understand the rationale that was used when they went through and did the assessments and also created these security elements, I think that would help out as well.
And if you go back to the assessment, each item has a note, and so you can go back and those notes will tell you what they were thinking. So you can go back and look at the assessment.
And they are vague though, a lot of those that I've went back to look at, so.
Right. But I think the overall, we're encouraging every district, this isn't just you, every district to utilize these funds, because it makes our ability to go back and ask for more much stronger if they get expended. If they don't sense the urgency. We sense the urgency, but again, it's hard to make that go upstream.
Just to make, go ahead, Brandon.
How's your bid pack? Like, did you do one bid pack?
In Douglas?
No.
Well, right here, plan
For
on
us.
releasing the bid docs in February. Is that like?
It's one,
It's a phase,
yeah.
district-wide, and schools first, secondary.
Go in and address all these elements.
Yeah.
Go in.
And if you remember, this was presented last year. This is where we were gonna do, it's a bid packet, but then itemize each school, because we're doing the labor in-house with my guys.
And you're
My guys
cash
will go to
flowing
the
it
school
through,
and we're cash flowing it through.
Yeah, I remember looking at some statute,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So,
Cool.
and then just to remind the district that 10% security money that does not have to qualify for the definition of major maintenance.
Right.
Okay, so it outside those bounds as well. It can or can't, whatever you choose, as long as it's meeting the security need. Okay, so next, capacity. Charlie?
So we did so when we go further down, we'll talk about these, but these are the three outlier schools that don't belong to any in-town configurations. So you have Black Butte, that's obviously an alt school, and then Desert, the K-8 out in Wamsutter, and then Farson Eden, the blue, the reason's highlighted in blue, that's the temporary commission number until we have it measured. We're currently looking at sending out FEA again in the fall to capture Farson Eden in about another 8 or 9 buildings that are need to get captured. So Farson will be part of that group. But for now, that 290 is what the commission said back in 2015, 2014. So.
And oftentimes when they remeasure and actually look at usage, the capacity is higher, sometimes significantly higher than what was approved by the commission because of the efficiency of design within the allowable. So don't be surprised if it comes back, because it will, higher than what you have.
Which will hurt us in funding eventually.
Well, yeah, because it's driven off ADM, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it.
You have more square footage than what you're getting paid for.
Okay, so this is the in-town configurations for your elementary schools. The biggest change there, as we know, back in June, the commission updated its methodology. So that's the biggest change on the capacities for that.
And this is just an example of district choices. Sometimes you're higher in some schools than others, and what you do in your district is your choice. We're mandated to look at the district as a whole and recognize that those choices of how you do your attendance zones and stuff like that is really your choice. And so, but we recognize overall that you're 84%.
But this is, and then Shelley, this is the one graph that or the chart that I like, because if you take out Pilot Butte and Eastside, the rest of them are true K4s, and you look at those numbers, and those numbers are pretty impressive numbers.
So
Which one?
Eastside is a K.
Take out Eastside.
Pilot is a K.
No, Eastside is a 5.6.
Oh, those are 5.6.
Yeah, they're 5.6. So if you take out those two 5.6, and then you look at that 8-year, that's what I'm saying, 8-year bubble, it's pretty significant. In fact, if you take those numbers that were on, that's the numbers I used, you've got for 5.8 would be 1723, and as we go forward, and 1 through 4 would be 1739. So even if you had, a little bit of loss, you're still gonna be over in the high school. So when I start looking at stuff, those, this to me is almost reality, because they were taking off the numbers that we had. It's not projected numbers. So those numbers speak a little bit different than what the projection numbers.
You've got the district numbers coming up, right? The total district numbers?
Their own projections.
Yeah.
Their own projections.
Yeah. Okay, because that's where it's easier to see. Here it's rather difficult here to actually see that.
All right. Then you see Rock Springs, the junior high there, and then the high school, which we just visited about. So I don't have anything else on that, so we can go to the enrollment projections.
Yeah. Let's see here. Go back and I'll pull up the actual projection itself. Okay, so the enrollment projections, let me do editing. Break that down just a little bit. So your enrollment projections are for trailing data 10 years back from today. That's the methodology. Just looking at your kindergarten numbers, you kind of go up and down a little bit here and there. Your kindergarten numbers as of this year were down about 60 some students there. Your average then is 460 over the last 10 years in kindergarten numbers. So that's just one part of the piece of pie. And this is just an example, I think, to look at what Dan's talking about. For instance, let's just take your K6, average class size 434. If you go your 7 through 12, average class size of 370. So, and that's what Dan's, and we're going to have to talk about this more clearly in just a moment. These are just actual numbers as of October 2nd of 2017 reported to us by WDE. And then overall, your district numbers are down a little bit this year, from 5384 down to 5255. So a little bit of drop there. So the trend has been somewhat up for a while, and now we've there is a kind of a drop after 2015, dropped down to 384, now 255. So the very end here has been a little bit of a trend down.
But the trend down has been in the elementary schools more so than in the upper levels.
But then that would, you said there was a bubble coming forward.
Yeah.
That would insinuate the opposite,
That's,
right?
that's the first part. Even though the trend has gone down, when you go back and use 10-year data and you look at the numbers actually have gone down in the elementary school. But then if you go back to the numbers that they were used to in the 2000s, they were used to 300. So even though we've gone down from like 480, 500 down to the mid 400s, we're still over what we were. So when you trend those kids out 10 years, 8 years, the high school is going to be in trouble.
So,
I'm
so,
not sure I see that.
and we're gonna talk about that again in just a minute, because so what we are responsible for in this organization is to stick to state statute and to rules and regs. That's the only authority we have.
Right.
The commission then has the ability to go beyond that, not beyond state statute, but within the rules and regs, they have different scenarios, and we're gonna talk about those. So I've been here lots of times. So, it's how you skin the cat, right? And so this is one way of looking at 20 years and looking at a trend. The actual methodology itself is and has been approved by the commission to a 10-year trailing data. So they don't reach too far in the back, okay, but they reach far enough back to say, hey, we can follow some trends. Now, one thing to point out on this, good or bad, okay, is basically these are mathematical computations, right? I mean, you're projecting out, and the farther out you get, the more theoretical it becomes for the reality. And then I think it's really important to see here that there are survival rates. And so we're going to be talking about these survival rates just a little bit, because survival rates obviously are important, because that's how it helps you project out in some kind of theoretical, mathematical way to project out. So, so with that, again, this is a tool. It's a tool that the commission has approved and that abides by state statute, but also the interpretation of this tool is really important to look at rules and regs to make sure that we understand what our responsibilities are when we make recommendations, okay, to the commission based on their rules and regs. So we're going to talk about analysis here in just a second. Okay, a minute. Statewide, Charlie?
Sure, absolutely. So every year we have to prioritize our capacities per our policy 2013-20 from the SFC. We do that by high, which is above 100%, medium between 95 and 100, and low priority between 90 and 95%. So as you can tell, Rock Springs right now is in high priority of capacity at 103.0%. There's only one priority that is above it right now, and that is an elementary school in Lincoln 2 for Afton and Osmond. So, but generally speaking, we look at this, and so there are a few issues around the state, but overall, very few.
Okay, just to read your note then, Sweetwater 1 is in the process of doing the most cost-effective remedy. You've already done that, and this is really a refinement or an updating, I would say, of your most cost-effective remedy issue at the high school. You'd like to receive funding for capacity remedy that would remove 324 students from the high school by the start of the 2020 school year. So now, when I was talking about want versus need, I'm defining need. We're defining need as following commission policy, commission rules and regs. And now there are educational needs you have. You're experiencing overcapacity and stuff. So what you're asking for here, just to acknowledge what you're asking for here, is what the commission rules and regs would allow us to ask for. But you're asking for it, and we acknowledge that. Anything else? And then in a moment here, we're going to go down to legislative session. We're going to actually talk through the analysis. Okay. We good? Mm-hmm. Okay, major maintenance calculations, allowable square footage. You guys, I'll have Charlie maybe explain this. Go ahead, Charlie.
So there are a couple of items. When we do the major maintenance calculator every year, we get asked the question, what are some of the big driving factors? Your ADM, average daily membership, is one of the biggest driving factors, or is the biggest driving factor, which drives an allowable square footage for for what your district is paid. So your district is getting paid right now 914,163 square feet. And it has 1,080, 16, it's a little over a million. Excuse me, not what I said, 1,000, a little over a million. Anyway, so there's a couple things that it says. Right now, you have a couple rural schools that are a little bigger than they need, so that's one thing. You have those outliers out there that don't have bigger buildings than they need. So, for example, Desert, pretty decent sized building, not a lot of kids out there. Farson Eden, you know, like what's not calculated in this one. Actually, the old building was calculated in this calculator, if I recall. This is from this past year. So the new building is not in there yet. So the couple, and then the other thing is that really, you know, we're not quite, there's a gap between what we fund and what you have on the ground. And so that's one of the things we're looking at, trying to find ways to be able to close that gap. And so Brandon will talk a little bit about that. Dan, as you well know, we did a major maintenance study this past summer, looking at ways to try to bridge that gap. And pretty much everything, the only thing that survived out of that right now is a 7-year phase-in at this point, unless that's changed.
7-year phase-in is still in the bill. You know, we've gotten the 2.5% through Select, but it got cut out by JAC. So, House JAC.
So that's current replacement value, and we asked for a higher percentage
The
of what
current
that is.
replacement value, we didn't get through Select.
Yeah, right.
But we got the
Okay.
2% up to 2.5% through Select, and we got it through joint appropriations, but when we got the bill, which is House Bill 32, over to the House JAC, the 2.5% got stripped. So the only two things we really have in there still that we requested, now not that it can't maybe come back when it gets on the Senate side, you know, and it is over on the Senate side now, is we got the definition for code compliance in there, which helps us. So now that if you get a request for a sprinkler system and you don't have one, we can say it meets the requirements of major maintenance, which we know today that's not the case. So we got that in there, and we got rid of the 7-year phase-in. So those two things are still alive. Yeah. We lost the rest.
So they'll give you they'll give you the full funding.
Yep. Based on ADM.
At year 2. Year 1, you've got warranty. Right. Start year 2, you get 100%.
So I do have a question on this, where you have actual educational space, ADM allowable, and above allow ADM. When you're figuring the actual education square footage, is that does that include enhancements? Because like if we have.
Nope, we actually back those out at the beginning of the calculator.
Okay.
So what we do, so when we go through this calculation process, the first thing we do is we take out non-educational square footage first. Then we look at your ancillary and all those others, those go through, and those are percentage, like your ancillary buildings admin. We give you a percentage of those replacement values. Second phase is then we back out enhancements. So if the square footage says attributable to enhancements, we back that out and then go forward with that square footage, which is the allowable.
Okay. So just so that I'm clear, if we have a school where the district said put the money into classroom space and we'll fund our gyms, how did you handle that?
That one I have to look at more specifically. Can you give me?
Say that again.
Yeah.
If you have a school that you said, put the money, we are gonna fund our own gym, how did you handle the gym?
The gym is,
Education space, but it's an enhancement because.
it's an enhancement, and it would not count, for generating major maintenance.
No, we back out.
So it would, and you're saying you did not include the enhancements?
No, we have to back out the enhancements.
Yep.
So that's, to answer your question on that, the gym wouldn't be classified as an enhancement.
Okay.
And then we back that square footage out.
This is simply illustrative to say that you have about 150-some thousand square feet that you're diluting your major maintenance on, 1,000 square feet that you're diluting your major maintenance on, because you're not getting paid enough major maintenance to.
Based on this moment in
Right,
time.
that's right.
Because when it was built to specifications and we should have got funded. But now ADM has dropped, so even though you guys told us this is your square footage, now you're saying, well, you have less people. So you have less money to fund the building that we told you to build.
From from day one, you're underfunded.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Because it's
It's a 5-year
built on a projection
Yeah,
out, and
for
the school
5 years.
district's going, give us more,
Yeah.
and then major maintenance comes, and it's like, give us less.
When did ADM drop? I thought we were looking at the opposite.
What's that
The
now?
elementary schools, it's dropped, but it's still high.
Overall, that's one of the lower
Yeah.
districts. We've seen some that are maybe 115 maybe is the lowest. So you're on the lower end of the.
Yeah, we're,
Oh, yeah,
Some
there's some near 200%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yesterday,
Shelby, did you have a?
Well, there's
You also
one,
have to reflect if they could have been a school that's very small too, in terms of the district.
Yeah, size of, portfolio.
Right, a building.
Yeah, right. That's true.
there's one of the bills out there that has some wording in it, and I think, Brendan, is it 30 and 140 that has it has some wording in it that said any building built post 2002 will be built for the size
Uh-huh.
that it was allotted, the allowable. The way it was worded, when we read it, we didn't know that it really said what it needed to say. But I've kind of lost track of that
It can't be
particular.
30, because I don't remember seeing that in 30, unless they
Okay.
just added it.
It's out there in one of them, and I just can't remember quite where it's at, but it was drafted and out there. Now, maybe it's been cut.
I think the bill 140 is they're on amendment 4 now. I was just
Oh,
checking
really?
to see what was happening today.
Well, and I think 140 and 30 are mirrors of each other. We thought they were gonna take them and combine them, and then, so I was really surprised when they both rolled out. So, it's moving fast. So, there's one out there that you ought to take a look at, because, that's something that we've been saying
Right.
kind of all along. If they build it at the size we told them to, they should be funded.
Yeah,
For
regardless.
that, we wanna pay for the whole building we told you to pay, and that we spent funds on to build. We
Yeah.
wanna take care of it, so. I have one other question. Now, maybe you're gonna talk about it here in a minute, but I'm curious what the district's proposing to do with Lincoln since you've closed it.
I would absolutely love to raise Lincoln, because it costs me money to maintain it, and, in fact,
Did you
Charlie,
mothball?
didn't I sent you that information for how much a month? I mean, it's not an astronomical amount of money, but when you have a building that you've basically mothballed, you just don't turn on the heat and walk away. You still have to have guys go over there every day. There's still maintenance that has to be done to that building. We've got soffits falling down, the roof is leaking.
So, no plan to, either you're not trying to sell it, actively trying to dispose of it, or planning to
So-
request a mothball?
One thing I forgot to ask you when you sent me the number, was this per month, 15,537 per month, or is that the year?
That's the year.
That's it, okay, 15,537 per year.
So has this one been in front of the commission to be mothballed?
No, because at the time, just the way the timing was, we had been using it, and then we weren't decided, then it's part of our Mercer study, so, but yeah, it needs to go, it needs to go in front of the.
What is the status of that one, Charlie, right now?
Right now, we just have it as,
Inactive?
inactive, I believe. I
Okay.
didn't look at it.
That'd be correct.
So,
But your request is, not- you don't really want to mothball it,
I don't.
you want to.
so the district needs to go then through the process of determining what it believes should be the future of the building. And then you have to have a public, if you
Right,
do
public
decide
meeting, yeah.
to dispose of it in whatever way,
Just like Lowell.
that you're gonna have to do a public process and then have, your board motion on that. And then next year, not this year, but next year for the biennium budget, if you wanna ask for monies for demolition, if you're unable to dispose of it any other way, and state statute specifically has a disposition, things on disposition, you have to follow, you have to seek other ways
All right.
remedying that building before the commission can ask for monies to demolish it, okay? So just let you know that.
Think anybody would take it? I mean,
Oh, I'm
is it-
sure they would.
real estate wise, is it all?
Real estate wise, it would help us out to have that land.
Just take the land.
Yeah, because we have a rec
Do a
mill.
land swap?
I don't know if I'd want to.
But
And
this-
you like the
this-
location?
this property is pretty well situated to your other two schools, right?
What I would like to do is raise the building and then go to rec mill, because Rock Springs is one of the areas that does have a rec mill. And then use that, reappropriate that land, because we have tennis courts, we have practice football fields. I would really look at the rec board and say, let's get the tennis court and the practice field off of our high school property and put it at this property. It would be a lot more functional, because right now our tennis courts are in disrepair. I mean, it's gonna cost, and you guys don't pay for that, we do.
Right.
So, and generally it is the rec board issue that takes care of it. So having that building there, I think right now is kind of hurting us more than it is helping us, because it's an eyesore. It's being used for storage, which isn't cool with the fire department. You know, so it would be a benefit to get the money to raise the building, then use that, reappropriate that property for the school district and for rec mill, especially, you know, the rec mill.
Can rec mill be used for demo?
No. No, but it'd be a joint venture.
There you go.
I don't know what to say there. Capital funds are requested in the future, the school board, would need to approve.
The disposition of property.
Well, they're
Disposition or repurposing the building.
repurposing of the property, yeah.
Right.
They don't really want it.
Yeah, let's just say that.
Disposition is allowed, it's,
Well-
you can use it, right?
Since it's a
One of the
1958
dispositions
building, that gives us a little more latitude as to what we can do.
Yep, so.
Okay, so I just lost my train of thought. Disposition or repurposing a building,
No problem.
property. Okay, good. We like to capture these, you know, there's, not saying it would happen to your district, but there's so much district turnover that from year to year sometimes, you know, it's like a new superintendent, new facilities, who knows, shows up, you know, and it's like, who made what decisions? What was communicated in the past? Where are we? Okay, charter school, you don't have one. Alternative high school, 92, Black Butte, 92%. So I think we're good there.
That's a college, I remember that last year.
Just like a vehicle, you have a lifespan or a life cycle of a building. Major maintenance, preventive maintenance, routine maintenance is a really important part of taking care of that building. As it ages, major maintenance monies are provided for the school district care of them, your buildings, and then eventually at some point, perhaps just like Lincoln, you have to then just start looking at, you know, do we need a major infusion of capital funds in some way to remedy it? And if so, is it going to be a renovation, a replacement, a disposition, whatever? So.
Hey, I've got a question for you guys. When you guys send people out to do the remeasuring of our buildings, it's FEA. Could we not ask them to go by Lincoln and do a new facility condition index score?
What purpose?
Because at some point, I'd like to do to comply with our Mercer, unless I misunderstood, weren't we gonna look at that Lincoln school? Or no?
You mean to move?
Feasibility of using it,
Of using it.
and rather,
When was it not done in 16? Was it not assessed in 16?
It was,
was it assessed? Okay, I didn't know whether it was,
scroll down real quick, Troy.
yeah, it's a 3.45.
You mean where we're going here?
Yeah,
Lincoln.
It was.
Yep.
So it was done in 16.
Okay.
So unless something dramatic has changed to change that number.
Well, the roof and.
Lincoln,
But for you, I think for you guys to, request capital funds eventually for that aren't necessarily tied to the most latest updated condition
Okay.
assessment.
Okay.
I think we've got data that can support possible capital requests.
Okay.
Statewide, the higher number is on the SCI, this is the Facility Condition Index. It just represents a higher amount of deferred maintenance related to that building. And this is, we've got 400 and some, educational buildings. Of course, we have the ancillary buildings as well. This is just the first page of the, education buildings on the SCI list. And then anything from, almost everything from a point four and above here, has been requested for some kind of capital, funds one way or another. Obviously, your, high school, has been requested for capital funds with regard to capacity, not condition.
Right.
So, anyway, that's
There
part
you go. So right there where you have, the 2 lines for Lincoln Elementary School, that's where it's at currently.
right there on the list. Yeah, first page. Yeah, good point. Overall, I think your buildings overall look pretty good in the district, other than Lincoln here. You do have the old Lowell that you said that you come back in and demo.
I had to update that number, so we have a new FCI number for that.
You updated? Okay.
Because, like I said, we just got the new condition stuff I think it's been a week or so ago. That will change.
Okay.
So,
I had a question.
actually, let me go pull it up.
So that has been assessed again, you said?
Yes, it has
Okay.
been assessed. I need to pull up the new numbers from FEA.
When did you close Lincoln? These projections and the 2017 numbers are with Lincoln closed? Did you
Yeah.
close it over the summer?
Yeah, we did. Last spring was the last.
Okay.
Okay. All right, major maintenance. Obviously, you guys submit a 680 form every year to reconcile your major maintenance bank account with expenditures. And we've got about 10 or 11 years that we can go back and look at your major maintenance expenditures any single year or as a whole, for the complete, I think since 2007. We usually just choose this as last year's, priorities. This is only for illustrated purposes. We don't need you to defend what you did or anything like that. It's just showing a record, in your overall facility plan that says this is how we prioritized last year. This is a numerical breakdown of those priorities, a total of about $5 million. And then these are the details per building of what you did within each one. Again, just a visual record of what your guys' priorities were last year. Low condition scores are a really important part of facility planning. You know that. We've asked all districts to look at their lower scores, and if, obviously safety and health are important aspects of spending major maintenance. The other day we had some district ask, does that mean we can't spend any money on scores of 3 or 4 or something? And no, that doesn't mean that. Ultimately, the major maintenance goes to you, and you need to prioritize. We encourage districts to have a correlation between their, we call an FCA or a system score, because system scores roll up to a building score. And these system scores are individual systems in buildings. So we usually run the low ones and just kind of keep putting that out in front of districts so they know what those low scores are, and hopefully correlate these lower condition scores with either major maintenance requests or component level requests, which are designed to supplement major maintenance that's insufficient to deal with overall in the district with the lower scores in buildings. Major maintenance projects are an important part of, what did I put here? Expenditures, okay. So what we'd like to do is major maintenance balances, just kind of always keep this in the front end, where are you at? And then if you do ask for like component projects, we actually reflect some or reference this for scoring those on a statewide basis. But all things, even if you guys were to get another 3.1 million this coming year, then in July 1, then you would have approximately $5.5 million in your bank account as a whole. So we always ask you to clean up the database. Something needs to be closed, close it. Otherwise, we roll forward with what you've already put, and you have plenty. Component projects, as you probably know, about 21 million were approved by the governor last year. that went out to multiple districts, which is just a great opportunity for the districts to improve their facilities. This year we have 10.5, give or take. These top 16 out of the 37 are actually in the budget and are still in there, haven't been cut, so that's a good, a blessing, and these are the districts that are gonna get that money, again, for component level funding. So that's an important kind of gap, to bridge the gap between available major maintenance. Sometimes districts, I mean, literally, a roof can cost 1.some million, over $1 million. Well, if you're a district that only gets 200, 300,000 a year, or if you're a large district, you have all these ones and twos you're dealing with, but you have a, $2 million roof, well, a component project may be a good opportunity for you to compete for capital funds to get that taken care of, so you don't just completely deplete your major maintenance and then you're not able to take care of those other things. Okay, so right here then, we're about ready to get into the meat and potatoes. By golly, 3:30 in the afternoon, we're about ready to get into the good discussions. Sweetwater 1 would like to be considered for emergency funding for our capacity issue. We'll reach our high school in 2 years and continue the next 8 years. I think that's been discussed here despite the capacity projection. So again, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and you're looking at projections and survival rates and numbers, and you're saying, yep, that's going to continue. And so that's what your request is. I think we heard from Shelby that you and Dell are saying that you are committed to asking for this project, or okay, may I type that here? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that goes in the supplemental request?
Supplemental request.
Good.
Yeah.
So budget sheet.
Yeah. That's why it's critical for us then to have the dollar figures of that partial construction.
Dan said right after he gets done skiing, he doesn't have anything else.
If I break my leg, I can just sit and draw.
Don't do that. Oops. Not good. Yeah.
That's why we invited you to the party, because we just needed you guys to tell us that.
Yeah, you need to revise that though. I mean, basically what I heard from the district is not the request for the whole satellite high school. It's for the results of this Mercer study for a portion, phased approach to that satellite high school and just the phase.
Satellite high school phase of determined.
Yeah, but however it's gonna be worded comes through the Mercer, what we want to use.
Is that good?
When does the session come to a close, and how can I help you with that request? Is there anything I need to do immediately?
Well, in June, I
Support
will.
you with data?
We need those dollar figures from the Mercer, and our request, we want to take to, commission in July, Brandon?
June.
So I need all the documents by the end of May.
Yeah.
Okay,
June,
that's easy. I thought you might want something this week.
No,
Get into-
no.
Monday would be
We aren't
fine,
going
Dan.
into- We aren't going into this session, it's too late for that,
Okay.
but, I mean, the sooner the better, so that we can continue working on our budget request, which we'll start working on in about a month.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd have about an hour and a half to get it into the
Well-
shit deal.
I'll meet anyone's expectations, but I just want to make sure I'm not letting anybody down
Yeah.
as far as giving you what you need to
So,
do that. So
so
thank
what
you.
I'll need
Yeah,
is the final flawless Dan Odaz document by the end of May. June, I'll put it all
We were gonna be
together.
done before that.
Yeah, let's get it done early.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
that's what I need. June and go, I'll prettify all this stuff that we're keeping track of, because there's 48 of these flowing in. There's also a bunch of agencies all flowing in. June, we compile it, get it all ready. In July, it'll go to its respective commission, up to the State Building Commission, goes on that track, and up to the School Facilities Commission on that track in July.
Because the number is very important, and so I want to give that the importance that
Right.
it deserves, making sure that you have the right number.
A good number.
Yeah.
And then I would recommend that the district is at that commission
Right.
when we're making that request for your capital project, that you're there to
Like a bus
support that
load.
request.
Yeah. School board, parents, teachers.
Yeah, yeah.
So there'll be a couple of commission meetings. There'll be one in June, where we're gonna show them the summary of all this stuff that is on here. Then in July, the commission will have to actually say yes or no. And then in August, by August 15th, I have to have it all in IBARs and off to the budget. And on August, September 30, or August 1st, end of August,
August 30th.
right before elk season. I know that day. It goes to the governor. And then we go to the select committee, so that would be your next milestone. So you
September.
got, somewhere in September. So you'll have to be there in,
June, July,
June.
August, September.
For the summary, July for the actual vote,
Right.
and then you'll have to hit the September select committee meeting, the October select committee meeting, and then the JAC meeting in December,
You wanna be there?
and then
Legislative session.
every single one after, to be determined.
Right.
Do you have a date for the June meeting?
No,
For
we
the
set it as, we
Yeah.
set it to be determined because we wanna wait. Select committee meeting's not set yet, and we wanna set our commission meeting after that select committee. So it's on a to be determined.
Yeah, and there could be a summary there too at the select, you know, because we've done a lot better versus the old days. I mean, we'll have it, we're keeping track as we're going,
Right.
so.
Okay, next part then, legislative session.
Ask another question here. Most of these Mercer studies, I mean, basically this ends up being the commission's remedy, right? So this Mercer needs to be presented to the commission, doesn't it?
It does.
So ideally, we would want this presented to the commission before that June
June
Right.
meeting,
meeting,
Yeah,
so
which
that
may,
they would accept,
yep, that's right.
yeah, that's true.
okay.
Before you get it.
Yeah, before I get that way, when I have
then it's
it,
approved by the
it's like,
commission.
hey,
And
this
it's-
is
yeah.
approved, here's the meeting minutes, I load it into the database, all the stuff.
You keep talking,
Organized.
Dan, it'll be next week.
Yeah.
Are we at May now for the commission or?
Yeah,
earlier?
May commission.
meeting.
That's where we wanna
Believe I gotta
present
go-
that Mercer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
That puts you in front, I mean, that gives you all the support you need when we go into June.
And Kelly, our original.
Is there a date for the
I
May
think our
meeting?
original, from our original meeting,
Go on, website.
we had the end of March having
May
it,
2nd.
having it complete, so.
That's right.
May 2nd and 3rd?
May 2nd and
So
3rd,
you'll have plenty of time.
There you go.
and Lovell.
Okay, and then we need
Okay.
it. Oh,
That's good for you, Dan, Lovell's good.
Close by.
Yeah, that's sweet.
It's a little further for Dan and Kelly.
And then there's a certain day we
Happiest
need to
part
get
was
it
the
to
one
get it
on
in the
the
packet.
northeastern.
Let me get that.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
as far as
Sunday.
Sunday.
We're gonna have one like in Hewlett or.
As long as it's on the agenda, Brandon, by the end of, March, I believe, for the May.
We were already scheduled to have it.
At the level meeting, you recommend
Okay,
I would say so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. I'll put it on.
all right, so, Dan made his scathing remarks here. The district obviously is concerned about the teacher capacity, so here's their perspective on, basically where those numbers are going. Okay, so here's where I get involved, in my preparation for this, so hang on to your seats here. Obviously, I have state statute that says we have to project out 5 years after, substantial completion, right? So that's just walking right down the law of what we need to do. At any rate, commission chapter, here's our actual rules and regs, with regard to what the commission, how a commission applies that. So we have, rules and regs for declining enrollment, stable enrollment, increase in enrollment, and best available data, okay? So, what we talked about in the last one is the two that we felt were applicable in some way, shape, or form, and I think the best available data, helps justify, when you guys are talking about an academy, that's part of the best available data, right? Of how can we make a satellite high school work in the way that we teach our students at a high school and not be busing back and forth all day long and make that practical. So here's what the stable, and I think you just need to understand the stable enrollment, where the school district's past and projected enrollment show a stable or randomly increasing and decreasing population trend. Allowable square footage shall be based on the average of 5 years, cohort. Survival calculation is approved by the commission. So there's an average of 5 years. That's if it's stable. If it's increasing, where the school district passed and projected, it shows an increasing trend, allowable square footage should be based on a 5-year cohort survival as approved by the commission, and that's back to the state statute, says 5 years after substantial completion, okay? So those are the definitions. I wanted to put that in here. So if the enrollment is interpreted as increasing, then the projected capacity for the high school as a whole would be 1445, 5 years past the substantial completion of 2022. So right here, if I blow this up, okay, we're doing the visual stuff, making good communication. So we project that probably the earliest it could be done is 2022. Okay, 5 years past would be 1445. So according to commission methodology rule reg, 1445 is what we would be aiming for a projected enrollment for a remedy. And that's what your study is honoring and doing. So we're walking right down the line. So there's no question. Now, if the enrollment is interpreted as stable, okay, so one says if you're going to claim it's increasing and growing, and if that's your stance, you get 1445 according to the methodology, okay, or according to rules and regs. If you interpret yours, as we look at it, you look at your high school, right, 11, 11, 11, 12, 13, 13, goes down 1385, 1362, 1396, down to 1386, okay, up to 1406. If you interpret that as stable, okay, but it is growing a little bit, but stable, it has its growth and stuff, then the projected capacity for the high school as a whole is 1515.
Troy, you keep saying projected capacity, projected enrollment.
Enrollment is 1550. Make sense? So I know we're talking about semantics, but if you're going to claim the growth, 1445. If you're going to claim somewhat stable but still projected out as growth, okay, then you take the 5 years according to the rules and regs, you average them, and before we gave the consultant these 5 years here, but as I read back through that, the year you open it should be considered, right, as part of your 5-year average, because it's the year you're occupying it. So we backed it up, and we got two 1554s here, and then it kind of went down a little bit from there. Then now, enrollment, everybody good? Yep. Okay, trying to be slow here. So enrollment projections take into account survival rates. So yes, Dan, we can look at this 20 years out. We can look at, what does your K6 look like? What does your 5.8 look like? And which we can talk about that, but we're just going right down the line of what the rules and regs are. Mm-hmm. So enrollment projections take into account survival rates, which the above mentioned 1717, so you'd mentioned 1717 up there, okay, does not, okay, take into account the survival rates and the approved methodology or enrollment projection. This represents the district's enrollment grades 5 through 8. That's how you came up with that number. Okay, WDE reported your 5 through 8 is 1723, a little bit different, that's right. So far, so good. Mm-hmm. So then what we're looking at here, as the district pointed out, is if you take these and just take them for face value, move them into here, okay, then we've got this 1723 number, okay. Methodology says, though, right, back to the methodology, it's either a 1445 or an average of these, which is whatever I just said. 1550, okay? So that was your argument or concern. So applying state statute and commission rules and regs, along with the capacity of the school, 1,364 students is the capacity, the additional added capacity recommendation could be either the following two, according to how it's presented to the commission and seen. If it's an increasing capacity, okay, then it produces 81 seats. If your interpretation is an increasing capacity, you apply that capacity methodology, okay, it's going to be 81 seats you can build to. If you believe it's stable, even though it may be increasing over time, if it's a stable trend over the last 10 years projected out, then it's 1515 minus the 1364 capacity, which is 151 seats. So, Shelby, we've kind of went to the stable, okay? I mean, when you look at the actual numbers here, and you're looking at, it is increasing, but they have some dips also. So we're saying, yes, it slowly is increasing, but it's also somewhat stable. We're taking that interpretation. Now, roll with it, do what you want with it. That's the best we can look at right now. Give me your opinions or thoughts. That's kind of our analysis on the front end of this.
I have a question.
Well, it's interesting to me that a stable trend is higher than a increasing trend.
Yep, and that's right. But we're just simply following the rules and regs. Yep, it is interesting.
So, is that common?
Well, I think that if I were to project out what they were thinking, sometimes an increasing trend, it may be a burst at the end, okay? And so that increase may have a lesser impact on the overall projection down the road, because yes, they're increasing, yes, they're growing like crazy, but it's a shorter period of increase. And I think in taking into account survival rates, taking into account the duration of the increase, in their projection, because the increase is a lesser, has a lesser weight, I guess, because of maybe how much growth has occurred, that projection then may not reflect a larger number because of the weight of or the amount, or the, what would you call it, the value of that increase within the overall 10 years. You're an engineer, you probably understand numbers more than me. That would be my guess, and that's only a guess. Where the stable shows, the stable goes back and it shows that increasing, and I think it may say, hey, listen, even though they were, it may take into account the larger picture of a stable, but it's a slowly growing district. And so because it's been stable, it hasn't had a lot of ups and downs at the front, or a large range. It may allow for a larger number to be projected out, but engineers, mathematicians, if you have a different theory, please throw it out. But just a thought.
I have a question on completion date. If you applied for emergency funds and we got started in 2019, that would give us a completion date. You're talking a 42,000 square foot building. You're talking a year to build. So if you move those numbers 2020, you gain probably about another 20 seats.
And that is probably true. Would it make a difference on your recommendation right now for phase one?
As long as it doesn't affect what we're asking for square footage.
You see the allowable, what you want is going to, we can do that though. But it's not going to make it, and you're absolutely correct. If we go that, and we can adjust this, if you want us to a different number based on your commitment to ask for the supplemental budget to increase 20 more seats. Which, hey, but what is that,
right? Because I'm looking at those numbers here.
That's true.
You move them down, you gain another 1520, you gain another 1485, you lose 1442 and 1445. So, you're going to gain a couple more seats and gets me closer to my goal. I'm not asking for, I put in there 300 because that's my job to do. But we're here to talk and negotiate to see what is best in everybody's interest. And as long as I can get closer to my goal, and I don't want to shortchange the district, I can live with that if my district.
Well,
actually, can I interject for half a second? So I ran both those back a little bit. So if you do get that 2019, you get funding, say we do complete in 2021, it raises us 16 seats to 1531.
Okay.
If we were to do 2020, it drops us to 1520. Like it's a minimal gain.
Okay.
So there's your two scenarios for you.
15 what, 31 you said?
1531 if we back the completion date up to 2021.
Well, I would think, we're going to go ask in the at the supplemental.
Right.
So I would think that we should line our numbers up.
I agree.
With where we're planning the request. Now, if we are unsuccessful with our request, then we have to
one battle at a time.
Right, we have to adjust those again. But I would say we ought to be using the plan that we're going to get that money in 19.
They get it in July of 19, bid it in the fall, or bid it in the summer.
Yeah.
Bid it right away.
So
Let me ask you though? How long, I mean, we won't know we've got the money until March. Does that allow the time to do the cleanup you've got to do on the design, finish the design, go back through, recheck it, make sure everything's still good to be ready to go when the money comes available?
Well, I'm wondering the same thing, but in a different light. If we get commission approval in May, would that give this group enough confidence to go ahead and allow us to move ahead with the design aspect of it, of reorganizing the plan, so that we are actually shovel-ready by the time we get the construction appropriation in 19?
That would be the proper way, but there's no.
You know, I think about that. I just don't know what our comfort level would be. And you hate to go spend that money and then we lose it, and then we don't get the money, and then we've spent that money, we've got to back up and do it again. So I just need to think about that.
I would wait till the select committee put it in a bill, because they dropped the bill in September, October. If it's actually in the bill, now it's got a fire behind it.
But more, yeah. My other argument against that would be, do you have the design money, yes or no?
We do.
Okay, and at that point, after they approve it, has the commission approved the most cost-effective remedy? Has it been designed for? Has been now? And so why wouldn't you move forward with the design? Because the state has an obligation to meet capacity needs, right?
Right.
They have an obligation to meet with capacity. So then when you come in and ask for that, okay, the design is ready. It's complete, and this thing is ready to hit the ground running in a bit.
Yep.
Instead of, well, we're not sure if you're going to approve it or not, therefore we kind of waited, and there's another excuse not to fund the project.
And
So
doesn't it?
there's risk, I understand, but there's also obligations.
I like where Troy's at.
Yeah, I do too.
Throw a different perspective.
And I would rather have adequate time to do it right, rather than
Right.
when the money always becomes available in either March or July. It's a problem, because, man, we're already in the construction season, and then you gotta scramble.
Right. Well, I think the other advantage to that is, I'm just thinking my way through it, is the other thing it gives us then the ability to do is request that money to be effective immediately and get out on the front end so you get the whole summer.
Oh, yeah.
If we wait till July, number one, your costs are gonna go up, right, because your contractors are busy, and you lose the benefit of that whole summer, because it takes you a month to 2 months just to get your contracts in place and all those other things. So.
One other thought that I've got, and you used the term emergency a couple of times, do we have a hazard here? If we go to the commission, they say emergency, you've got a school, we can go spend $1 million and get kids into it. It may cause a problem for us using that word.
It's not I wouldn't use emergency.
Well, he's used the term a couple of times. I'm saying you go in emergency commission and call it an emergency.
What's that?
A funding
I see what Paul's
request.
saying.
Well,
Yeah.
how
Yeah,
about
because
if
you go use that terminology, they'll say, fine, we've got a couple $1 million, go fix that little school up, put some kids in it.
Yeah, there is because emergency is divided by statute, as in, we gotta close the doors today,
Right.
things went super south.
So I'm a little afraid of that terminology continuing
Yeah.
to be used, because I'm afraid we could get a reaction we don't expect.
I think the request is by capacity driven.
Okay.
Right, and that's supported by.
It's a high
funded
capacity
nurse.
need and over capacity.
Yeah.
Here-
Okay, then, change it.
Here is the actual wording in the bill, working through it, says the School Facilities Commission shall submit a supplemental budget request, for any emergency or unanticipated need, that could be defined as a capacity need, right? Continued growth, or for any refinement or modification of a project under this section. That could loosely be interpreted as the design's already in motion, okay, and now we're asking for a modification of the it's a little looser, of the
I
construction.
do like that section better too.
Refinement or modification.
Right, and I think we hang our hat there too, because we say, well, we had the capacity need, but we knew we wouldn't get the whole project, so we funded this Mercer, we went and looked at it deeper and came up with this other alternative. to bring
This is a modification of that script.
Yeah.
I think I like that
I
better.
like that.
Yeah, we can.
That's a much better way to go after it.
Yeah.
Okay. gonna repeat that, right? And so, how do we want to restate this, guys?
It was a
Clues.
refinement of property.
How about this? How about this? A request for phase, period, right? We can, let me go back up and correct this.
And I would probably tie the wording that based on the recently completed Mercer study in there too.
I'd get rid of the word phase one.
I was thinking about
We
that.
can't have phase projects per
Okay.
statute.
Let's go with your idea first, Shelby, based on what?
Based on the recently completed Mercer study.
Is it completed?
Will be.
Well, it will be.
Upcoming.
Why don't you just put based on the completed Mercer study, that way there is no,
Based on the.
we can get rid of.
Timing,
Yeah.
okay, based on the completed Mercer
Yep.
study?
That's good.
Okay, now,
And then you want to take out phase one?
Yeah.
so I was wondering about
I
that.
think we need to put something there to indicate that it's not the whole enchilada.
So a
Just
modified
do it a
scope.
portion. Put
Maybe
it-
Modified version of the satellite high school
Yes, modified version of the satellite high school, yeah.
to make up for the word emergency.
That one scares me.
Modified.
Yeah.
Playing Scrabble.
Okay. Semantics, but you know what? Sometimes they make a huge
Word.
difference.
So you're gonna change one,
Yeah.
the emergency that's in mine.
What's that now?
You can change where it says emergency in mine.
Okay, do you want me to change your wording?
Absolutely.
I don't touch district's notes unless they tell me to. Where was your,
It was just up where you were.
where was your horrible? Your emergency here?
No,
Is it up above?
go
Oh,
back.
hey, oh. Okay, what do you want to say?
Just with the statute thing. What was that, Brent?
Modified version?
Yeah.
Okay, would like to consider,
Or-
consider for for funding,
Yeah, I'd
how's
get
that?
rid of it.
For capacity issue, great? Happy?
Yeah, that's better.
Don't touch your note. Okay, I almost violated my conscience. All right, so I'm gonna highlight this and I'll adjust, I'll justify the numbers and stuff. And when we send it back out to you, it will be reflective of 5 years, a completion of 2021, right? And we'll do all that and we'll send this back to you guys
Okay.
or you can modify
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
You guys got the spreadsheet, right?
Yes, I got it right here.
And we'll modify this and have it all our little, Ts crossed and our Is dotted. Are we good here? Okay, good meeting? Okay, we're really, really close to being done.
You're really trying.
Um,
You guys have a long drive home.
are you guys going all the way back?
Yeah.
It's Friday, Troy.
Yeah.
Of course they're going.
Okay, so let's wrap up. I think we've kind of talked about the phase in.
Yeah.
Are we good?
Most of that,
Yeah.
we've been through.
Okay, we've talked about it. Read it if you need to more. Supplemental budget, we've caught this, and I think we've
I got the word crisis.
Yeah.
Capacity.
What now?
Wait.
Oh,
You've got a crisis in there.
you have crisis?
When I looked at it, I was passionate.
It's gonna be a war.
I was pounding my own
You know,
I was giggling when I was working with him and we only did it.
for those of you who are part of the last meeting, it's kind of like we were telling you guys, district, get engaged. You gotta get engaged and you gotta get passionate about this, your board and your legislature. Man, you guys are doing really well. Good, get on to it.
I did everything to take my shoe off.
And there's other reasons I'd like to say that you should be passionate about this, but the important thing is you're being engaged, and that's it. And we're joining you according to what we should be joining you in, that we can work together to accomplish the goals that we have. Okay, so I think you've now done a little more here. Anything else you want to add to your?
You want to lighten up that district note?
Now you're taking all my steam out.
As long as it doesn't use.
Okay, do you want to say you've been continually ignored by your legislators?
I would say that.
Troy, scroll back
Sure,
up.
yeah.
I'm gonna ask Dan Odaz and Will Wheatley, what is an architectural term for version? Because I don't think version is a good word to use. You're actually, you're going to be, modifying the plan, or, you know, a version could be, well, is a version of the satellite high school, we modifying the programming? You know,
Let's call it a reduced scope. Then it's smaller and more frugal, and we're just going with the first piece.
Okay.
Or it could be Dan's vision.
That will be taken much better by somebody who looks at the modified reduced.
Yeah, thanks, Lance.
There you go, that's better.
Okay, modified reduced scope of work for the satellite high school.
Complying with the
Good job,
modified
Lance.
scope piece.
Okay, good job, Lance.
Thank you, Lance.
You're all over it.
See, I could tell you that I'm listening.
Yeah, we were just afraid you were snoozing though.
Well,
Where he was beating the computer with a split.
Right, Dan, the passionate kind of guy.
They were just really hurting you. I thought it was awesome. I didn't know what to do.
Put a period at the end of needs, and then scratch the rest of that.
Okay.
Yeah, because we looked over the budget, and these may go to
That's why I had a
budget
comment.
percent.
No, not the whole thing.
Where the comment is. I got
Just the rest of this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got the comment. That's why I did that. It was my thought at the time. Sorry.
Get rid of that still there, our need, period.
Oh, I like still in there. Still, Dan is still passionate.
I had a Jimmy Swaggart moment.
Okay,
Wow, we're just deep.
all right, district, here's your last chance. Anything we have not talked about in this meeting that you'd like to talk about before we close it?
Show me the money.
Talking about something.
No, I think, I appreciate everybody's input, I really do.
The only other project I heard is not school. Would you guys have would you demoed in the 21, 22 budget?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Right, for the biennium?
Yeah, the biennium
Yep.
budget.
Yeah, so we
Yep.
put that in.
Biennial budget, yeah.
Yep.
But then you'd go through all your.
Yep.
Yeah, because we've got a long way to go on that.
Yeah.
We will lose it then, but
Okay,
biennial budget.
staff, any other things before we close out the meeting? Okay, with that then, I will stop the recording, and we, of course, appreciate the school district for coming in person and value that. So with that, we're done.
Final with the numbers.